Power Plays and Proposals by Jessica Parker. Narrated by Lisa Lynn Sandlin. Copyright 2024 by Jessica Parker. Chapter 1. Leah. Chocolate is the best way to start any day, and I needed the really good stuff today. I didn't hesitate to select the chocolate pastry from the fresh tray in the back of La Petite. I picked up the chocolate croissant and didn't even yelp at how hot it was. "Don't burn your tongue," Maria warned me, just like she did every time I picked up my freebie treat from a hot tray. The best part of working at the little corner pastry shop was that Maria fully supported taste testing her creations on me. I had to limit myself to one item at the beginning of my shift and an extra at the end of the day if anything was left over. Maria refused to sell day-old stuff, but I didn't mind it one bit. I was pretty sure that the treats were the only reason I had hips. Where Maria had the beautiful curvy features that made a man look twice. I had earned the nickname Lanky Leah in college, where a gourmet meal involved instant ramen. Not much had changed since with the amount of student loans I had to pay off. Today's creation was my absolute favorite. The flaky, buttery layers with the dark chocolate center and a little extra drizzled over the top. "You got it, boss lady." I nodded to Maria and licked the chocolate off my thumb. "This is your best batch yet." She smiled even as she said, "And wash your hands before you touch anything." I bit into my breakfast with delight and savored every morsel. I really needed this today. That piqued Maria's curiosity. "The sun isn't even up yet. What could have possibly happened?" "Late payment notice," I mumbled around another bite and wiped away some of the flaky crumbs that had fallen on my jeans. "What?" she asked and stopped mid-dusting of the top of her strawberry almond pound cake with powdered sugar. "But it's only the 2nd. It was on my door this morning. Nearly locked my favorite scarf in the door jamb. I was so busy looking at the yellow paper. Benny took it upon himself every month to post late payment notices by the 2nd, no matter what. The banks were closed yesterday due to New Year's, but holiday or not, my landlord posted notices to 50% of the apartments in the building, according to my homebound elderly neighbor, Mrs. Jacks. She'd lived in the building for 20 years and took great pleasure in spilling the tea to me on the other folks in the building. She also enjoyed handing over her rent the moment Benny came to her door to put up a late notice. I think she watched through the peephole to see the moment he'd pull out his tape dispenser to post it. Then she'd whip open the door and hand him a check. "Saved her the steps," she'd told me with a wink the first time I saw the exchange. This was my first time receiving the late notice, but if I couldn't pay, I'd be out before I could say croissant 10 times fast. She stared at me. "Do you need a loan?" I shook my head and had to tuck a strand of my red hair back under my hat. "You're the best, Maria, but I'll figure it out. Benny said he'd give me till the end of the week to scrape the money together. Besides, I have more shifts at the salon this week, and I picked up another one at the flower shop." "Girl, you are the hardest working broke person I know. For how many jobs you have, you shouldn't have a problem with bills." "Don't I know it? How about you take an extra treat today?" I smiled at the offer. Working for Maria didn't pay much, but the regular pastries she gave me made up the amount of groceries I didn't need to buy. Maria was also the first friend I'd made when I moved to Glacier Bay, and I did not want to bring my troubles to her doorstep. She had enough to worry about with business being slow. She didn't need my money problems on top of it. "I hope they give you more to do than shampooing and sweeping." "You and me both. I'm on walk-ins today." "That's good, right?" "Definitely." I hoped that I sounded more confident than I felt. Being January 2nd, I doubted anyone needed their hair done. Most people prefer to get their hair done before the holiday season, not after it. Maria gave me a sympathetic look. I have a couch if you need it. There's motivation if I ever needed it, I teased. My couch is not that bad. If I lived in the Stone Age, that thing is hard as a rock, even if it is pretty to look at. It's got good bones, she said, and handed me a tray. Taking the tray, I went up to the front to fill up the glass display with the freshest batch of muffins. I then flipped on the open sign and unlocked the door. I was just about to pick up the tray to take it to the back when he walked in. I greeted him with a playful smile. Well, well, if it isn't Super Dad. The one and only. He matched my smile as he confidently strolled up to the counter, taking his place across from me. The first time I'd seen him, he'd been wearing a navy shirt with the red lettering that called him Super Dad, and the nickname had stuck. For the past 3 months, Super Dad had become a weekly fixture in the bakery, selecting treats he thought his kid would enjoy, or a breakfast croissant before a busy day at work. Always incognito with a hat or the hood on his jacket up, and those mysterious sunglasses on. Today, he wore the Super Dad shirt. I loved when he wore this shirt. It hugged him a little too snugly, bearing the marks of many years and countless adventures, and showed off his great physique. His arms were particularly noteworthy and looked perfect for holding and protecting. You know, you can take your sunglasses off, I teased as I leaned in conspiratorially, like I always did during our banter. Or do you still want to keep your identity a secret? The truth was, I wanted to see his eyes. Did they twinkle with mischief? I fully believed that the window to the soul was through the eyes, and it bugged me that I couldn't see his. Superheroes always need to stay secret, he replied, running a hand along the blonde scruff on his jaw, a playful smile on his lips. My stomach did that weird flippy thing it always did when he smiled. Picking up something for your mini superhero today, or just treating yourself? I inquired, a playful smirk on my face. I'd asked once if he wanted something for his wife, and he swiftly clarified his single status. No sidekick today, but I thought I'd take some extras to work with me. That's very generous of you. How big of a box should I get? He ordered extras on occasion, and it was always a big order. Some days I wondered if he was feeding a football team or something. As I assembled his order, our playful banter continued, a delicate dance of words that held a spark of something more. Yet, that was the extent of it. By unspoken agreement between us, neither of us ever pushed for anything more. I sensed it in the way he'd mentioned his divorce that one time. His tone matched the way I felt when I thought of my failed relationship. We shared an understanding that went beyond the surface, and we wouldn't be venturing into the realm of dating. No, I'd savor the thrill of these moments without risking the pieces of my heart breaking further. I brought his order of breakfast croissants to the register, and he paid with cash, telling me to keep the change. With one last smile and one last flip of my insides, he left. I took the empty tray to the back while I had the chance. Maria looked up when I walked in. Super Dad? The one and only. The bell on the door at the front interrupted our conversation before Maria could tell me to ask him out, like she usually did. She didn't understand that if he ever asked me out, the little moments of what I shared with him would be ruined. I popped out of the kitchen to see a woman with frazzled blonde hair wrangled into a bun staring blankly at the menu on the wall. She had a navy blue business suit on that fit her curvy figure beautifully. She topped her outfit off with cherry red heels that had my feet protesting just looking at them. What can I get you? I asked. What do you feed the man of your dreams to get him to notice you? I said that out loud, didn't I? She sighed and turned to me, and with a shrug of her shoulders and a smile, said, That was supposed to be an inside thought. Please ignore. Happens to everyone, right? I asked. She positively beamed. I knew I'd like this place the moment I saw it. It stood out like a ray of hope in the cold city as I trudged through the cold slush and snow in the depths of despair. I'm Hannah. She held out her hand to shake. Leah. I shook it quickly. Sounds like you're having a double chocolate muffin morning, too. I don't know what that means, but I am definitely up for anything with chocolate. It's only the best thing to hit the breakfast and dessert menu. It's so good, it makes me forget I'm broke and single. She let out a musical laugh. That sounds amazing. Do you ever have those days when you feel completely inadequate at your job? Like, I love my job, but I think they only hired me because my brother is on the team. The team? I asked. She gasped. The Glacier Bay hockey team? They've only been on the biggest winning streak for a new AHL team ever. I don't really know anything about hockey. Blasphemy! She grasped the pearls around her neck in mock horror. Leah, how many times do I have to tell you to not scare away the customers? Maria teased as she came up to the counter. Hannah dropped her horrified expression and exchanged it for a somber one. Please tell me you know about the hockey team. Maria snorted. You mean the hockey team that has the pretty blue banners with a bear on every light pole in the city? Hannah grinned and made a little fist pump. Those were my idea. They are gorgeous. Makes me think about getting one for my shop, Maria said. Do you work with the team or the city? Team, she grinned. That's why I'm here. I'm in a desperate need of muffins for a meeting in, she looked at her watch and squeaked, 30 minutes. Well, we can't have a bunch of hangry hockey players, can we? I said and started boxing up the muffins Hannah asked for. Classic blueberry, decadent chocolate, orange cranberry, banana nut. She pointed and it went in the pretty white box with Maria's logo printed on a sticker across the top. Are they really as hot as the pictures make them look? It's not just Photoshop? Maria asked as she pulled out a sports magazine from her pile of yesterday's mail. A man in a Glacier Bay jersey and jeans stood before an ice rink. His blonde hair was long enough to run my fingers through, but not long enough to flop over his eyes. With icy blue eyes, he stared intently from the cover. Text boldly pronounced him as January's Mr. Hockey. Definitely better in person. Hannah sighed dreamily and put a hand on her curvy hip. And he's one of the best. Why do you say that? I asked. If you saw him with his daughter, you would understand. Some players are little more than muscles and testosterone. Not Nate. He's the nicest guy, unless you trigger his protective streak that's a mile wide. I placed the last muffin in the box. Well, sounds like he's better than my ex anyway. Hannah looked at me questioningly. If I had more time, I would ask for all the details. Maria smiled. Join our book club. We can make her spill everything over finger sandwiches. Leah hasn't spilled the tea on her ex to us yet. There's no tea to spill, I protested. It was all very amicable. Maria and Hannah shared a look that said loud and clear that they didn't believe me. You broke up, then moved here and still haven't told me all the details. I'd hoped that she'd forgotten about it. The last thing I wanted to do was dwell on the embarrassment of my breakup. Ted had been perfectly sweet, and he checked all the boxes when it came to being the exact kind of man my parents wanted for me. My mother had cooed over him more than once on our calls. She'd certainly never coo over a hockey player, and my dad would probably have a heart attack. My cousin Haley, on the other hand, well, there was a reason I'd moved to the other side of the country a year ago. Now I really need to join your book club, Hannah said, but I have to warn you, I'm a die-hard Pride and Prejudice kind of girl. You're going to fit right in, Maria reassured her. We celebrate Pie and Prejudice Day every March. The three of us laughed, and Maria rang Hannah up for the muffins while I put the muffin boxes in a larger craft paper bag. Maria added a few extra danishes to the bag for free for good measure. Then she wrote her number on the back of her business card and handed it to Hannah. "Text me, especially if you have another muffin emergency. You're a lifesaver, both of you." Hannah took her muffins and with a little finger wave was on her way. The morning rush started pouring in, and I forgot about book club, hockey players, and eviction notices as I served up danishes and donuts to customers. It felt good to see the trays in the glass display dwindle until Maria was able to trade them out for lunch options. Her business was finally getting the traction it deserved. And today was a good day. I hung up my apron on the hook near the back door, then used the bathroom in the back to swap my bakery shirt and jeans for my black salon clothes. I put on my puffy white winter coat and lucky yellow scarf and waved at Maria. "I'm off to the salon." "Good luck," Maria told me as she handed me a to-go cup full of peppermint hot chocolate and marshmallows. I walked around the counter to the self-serve station and gave myself a generous helping of rainbow sprinkles on top. Maria shook her head at me, and I just shrugged. No matter how old I got, I'd never turn down a hot chocolate with marshmallows. If I was going to drink diabetes in a cup, then it most definitely needed to be done properly. This cup of goodness, topped with sprinkles, was now complete. On to job number 2 of the day. Chapter 2. Nate. The scrape of skates on ice would always be my second favorite sound. The first being the sound of Penelope's laugh as she told me about how excited she was to show her friends her Christmas presents. I'd gotten her a charm bracelet kit and an artist gift box, complete with a professional sketchbook. She'd already texted me a picture of the drawing she'd started of me playing on the ice. She'd picked the photo of me falling on my face after spraining my ankle. My ankle was doing better now, and with some extra tape, I should be able to play in the game tonight. "Dad, I gotta go. Mom wants to take me somewhere." "I'll see you next weekend, Sweet Pea." I hated that I didn't have more time with her, but the judge didn't want to give me more custody when I was gone so much during hockey season. Hard to keep on top of Penelope's schoolwork when I had games October through April, and half of those took me out of state for days at a time. Not to mention that Erin made it so difficult to co-parent that every nanny I'd hired ended up quitting in less than a month. The last one didn't even last a week before Erin reduced her to tears. "Nate!" I looked up to find Lou skating across the rink towards me. "One of those for me?" He pointed at the white pastry box in my hands. I'd pulled the sticker with the bakery logo off the lid before anyone saw me with it. Selfishly, I didn't want any of my teammates discovering the gorgeous redhead that worked there. My exchanges with her made me feel normal, and for the first time since my divorce, I was tempted to try dating again. She made me hopeful that one day when Penelope was all grown up, I could date again. But that didn't mean I wanted to see any of the knuckleheads on my team flirting with her. More of the team skated over and swarmed like teenage boys when they realized I had food. There were some things that would always be the same. In a matter of seconds, I was left holding an empty box. Good thing I'd eaten mine before I entered the building. "You cleared to skate today?" Lou asked after he'd taken the last bite of the egg and bacon croissant. "Going to see the doc now." He nodded. "I'll save a puck for you." The room for the team trainers wasn't as fancy as the NHL level rooms, but it had the necessities: the rolling ultrasound and stimulator racks, whirlpool tanks, treatment tables, ice makers, and other rehabilitation equipment. There were drawers and cabinets of medical stuff to treat injuries that didn't require a trip to the hospital. "Mr. Mitchell," Doc greeted me. "Shall we see if you're good to play tonight?" "I know I'm ready to play." "Hop up on the table and we'll see." The sprain had felt bad at first, but luckily it wasn't as bad as first diagnosed. Resting and following the RICE protocol had done wonders for it. I hadn't needed crutches for a couple of days now, and while it was tender, I didn't limp now. I sat on the table Doc pointed at and pulled off my shoe. He sat on one of those rolling stools in front of me as he picked up my foot. "Tell me if it hurts." I felt the smallest twinge in a couple of spots as he had me move my foot around, but it was nothing I hadn't played on before. No pain, no gain, as my dad liked to tell me growing up. Doc picked up his clipboard and checked a box before signing his name below. Suit up for morning skate, but I want you an extra tape. The grin spread on my face. You got it. I put my shoe back on and headed to the locker room to get my gear on. My blue jersey was hung up in front of my pads. I moved it to the side and reached for my shoulder pads, only to find that they were all taped together. I shook my head as I turned to find Daniel laughing from where he sat on a bench across the locker room. Married life too boring for you? I asked him. I'd been there and done that. Erin had made sure to destroy any and all desire I had to date or get married again. He shook his head, a beaming grin on his face as he thought of his new wife. Nah, man, but I owed you one after the gum in my glove. I hid my grin and started ripping away the tape. That was payback for the lid on the water bottle. That wasn't me, Daniel said. Sure it wasn't. I pulled my stuff apart and started putting it on. See you on the ice. We bumped fists as he walked by me towards the rink. My first step on the ice after being out felt as good as coming home after a long time away. Here on the ice, nothing else mattered. There was a reason the NHL had drafted me young. They knew I gave each game my all. If things hadn't fallen apart with Erin, I'd still be playing there. Instead, everything had fallen apart, and I'd been traded to the minor league before finding my way to the city of Glacier Bay. Dan and the other guys on the team had helped me get back on my feet, and I wasn't looking forward to leaving them at the end of the season. Stupid custody arrangement, I thought to myself. The puck slid across the ice towards me, and I took off with it, aiming my stick towards Dan in the goal. A blur of blue body-checked me from the right side. Head in the game, Gramps, Lou teased as he took off with the puck he'd stolen from me. I chased after him. We traded a few hard hits before Coach told us to save it for the game. We took it easier after that, sharing verbal blows instead of physical ones. Doc checked my ankle after the skate and told me to get my nap in before the game against the Falcons. I headed to the locker room to take a quick shower before heading home. I grabbed my bottle of body wash and headed to the showers. Still thinking about the upcoming game, I didn't pay attention to the bottle I grabbed until the smell of vanilla cupcakes reached my nose. It was then that I looked down at my normal bottle of amber and musk body wash to notice it had been swapped for a glittery cupcake type Penelope would love. I rinsed off the best I could, smiling even as I vowed retribution to whoever pulled the prank. When I returned to my locker, a few of my teammates were smirking. I'd get 'em back. The team met with Coach to talk through the game we had tonight, and I enjoyed an orange cranberry muffin from the familiar bakery boxes Hannah had brought in. I could only hope that my teammates would forget the name of the bakery. Coach talked through a lot, and then I chatted with Dan and Lou for a while. Hours later, all I wanted to do was head home and get a quick nap in before having to get back here. Game days meant long nights for everyone. I enjoyed the short walk back to my place. On game days, I was especially glad my condo wasn't far from the arena. I could walk between the 2 and 5 minutes when the crowds weren't around. I checked the time on my phone as I rode the elevator up to the top floor where I had the penthouse. The elevator opened into a small room with a door to my place. I pulled out the key and walked into my place. It was quiet and too clean without Penelope leaving her colored pencils and papers everywhere. The plate I'd used for breakfast was still in the sink, but I'd cleaned up the toast crumbs from off the white marble counter. Light streamed in through the big windows, wrapping around the corner of the far wall. I could see the dark blue ocean water not too far in the distance and the cloudy sky above. No doubt it would rain later, so I'd want to take my car to the game instead of risking getting soaked after the game. I set an alarm on my phone and noticed that I had the Do Not Disturb setting on. I must have accidentally turned it on after talking with Penelope earlier. I switched the setting off, and my phone immediately started pinging with texts from an unknown number. I read the first one and immediately grabbed my keys off the rack and ran out the door. Chapter 3. Leah. I walked through the dirty gray slush that matched the clouds above as I drank my drink on the way to the salon. After getting my cosmetology license, getting a job at the salon hadn't been easy. But as much as I liked Maria in the bakery, that was her dream. I loved helping people feel beautiful and look their best. The cut the salon took meant I broke even more often than I walked away with money. But I was still growing my client list. With all the holiday closures, I really hoped for a lot of walk-ins so I wouldn't need to worry about being evicted. Barely 2 steps inside the salon, I took off my hat and stuffed it into my bag. "Leah!" I snapped my head in the direction of the stylist, calling my name. Charlotte had quickly become my best friend at the salon. We'd bonded when she'd seen the latest Ella Glass novel fall out of my bag and had sent me a couple of clients when she was overbooked. She and her client were the only ones in the room. "After you get your coat hung up, can you grab the toner for me from the back?" she asked. "I accidentally left the bowl on the counter." I smiled. "Sure thing." There was a small break/laundry room for us to keep our things in and wash towels. I found my locker and stashed my stuff. I looked at the corkboard above the coffee maker, looking for an envelope with my name on it. That would mean I had a check. Until I saw that amount, I wasn't sure exactly how much I needed to earn this week. There were no envelopes on the board for me or anyone else. Spotting the black bowl next to the sink, I picked it up and hurried out to the front. Charlotte thanked me and continued to work the toner into her client's hair. Her client scrolled on her phone, and I reminded Charlotte about the book she needed to read for book club. "We had a call in earlier. She said nothing fancy, just a cut for her daughter before school starts back up. I put her on your books as you had the only opening." "I can do that," I smiled. "Did she indicate if it's a trim or a major cut?" "She said she wanted the kids' hair really short." I didn't like the sound of that. Depending on the girl's age, super short hair didn't get asked for, but I also needed a paycheck badly enough that I couldn't afford to decline a client based on a gut feeling. "I didn't see checks on the board. Do you know if they were put somewhere else?" I asked. "The boss should be in late." Charlotte rolled her beautiful toffee-colored eyes. "She decided to go on a last-minute vacation to the Bahamas last week, so fingers crossed she's back." In the few months I'd been here, I'd discovered the boss took a lot of vacations and wrote a lot of late checks as a result. On more than one occasion, my weekly promised check had been delayed while the boss caught up on paperwork from being gone. Checks should have been posted to the board Friday. As Charlotte focused on her client, I took the opportunity to get my station ready and unpack all the things from my rolling stylist case. It didn't require much, but I fiddled with it until everything I needed to cut, color, curl, or style hair was exactly where they were supposed to be. I spun the black chair in front of the big square mirror and realized I had terrible hat hair. When I'd pulled my hat off earlier, I hadn't realized that pieces of my red hair had come free from the braid and were now shooting in different directions like fireworks. I grabbed my comb and some gel and smoothed the pieces back into a presentable position. I preferred to wear my hair free, but there was a lot to be said about having it out of the way. Hair fixed, I glanced hopefully out the glass windows at the front of the salon. Rain had started pouring down from the gray sky. The foot traffic wasn't heavy when I'd walked over earlier, and the dreary weather meant the likelihood of a walk-in was low. I checked the computer and found my client wasn't supposed to be in for another 15 minutes, so I worked on straightening the sitting area by the windows where clients waited for their turn or parents waited for their kids' haircuts to be done. It was a simple area with a water cooler and 2 chairs and a love seat by a low coffee table topped with magazines. The magazines range from politics to celebrity gossip rags. I noticed one of the magazines had a picture of Mr. Hockey on it, and I picked it up curiously. He had his arm around a pretty woman with curly auburn hair and a grin on his face like he didn't have a care in the world. The photo made it difficult to tell for sure, but If I had to guess, I'd say it was her natural hair color. I found myself envious of the darker undertones in her hair compared to the brighter ruby tones in my own. My ex had often compared my hair to the color of a fire truck. The magazine speculated on the new relationship and who the mystery woman was. I didn't envy the public speculation, but I felt a pang of envy at how secure she looked with his strong arm around her as she looked up into his eyes with a spark of joy in hers. She belonged there with him, and it had been a very long time since I felt I belonged with someone. My ex had certainly never made me feel that way. I couldn't remember the last time I'd looked at someone with a spark of anything. Well, that was a lie. I could remember who I'd looked at that way before I dropped out and was drowning in student debt. Before when... Leah, do I pay you to read magazines? I looked up to see the salon owner in the entryway. The boss lady always left an impression, and today was no exception. Dressed in shiny black heels, black jeans, a button-up silky white shirt, and a black blazer, Priscilla looked like she'd stepped off a runway somewhere as she pulled a red scarf from her sleek Victoria Beckham-style bob. She tipped her black umbrella over her slim shoulder, and water dripped to the floor. She pointedly looked at the magazine in my hand. I dropped it to the table as if it had bit me. "No, ma'am. I was just straightening the area up." "Well, now that you're done ogling the hockey model, help me with my umbrella." I took the thing from her and folded it up. "You got water all over the floor. Be a dear and mop it up. It's a slipping hazard." She walked away from me towards her office, pausing for a moment by the black door with a hand on the silver doorknob. "Oh, and I don't want to be disturbed today, so there better be a fire or a lot of money involved if you bother me." She closed the door, unconcerned with if I needed help or not. Not that I would go to her. I'd learned on my first day that no one bothered the boss if they wanted to keep their opportunity at the salon. "Yes, ma'am," I muttered. Hurrying to do what she asked, I got the string mop out of the back and wiped up the water her designer heels and umbrella had left behind on the black and white tiles. If mopping up after her meant that checks would be done faster, I'd mop up every time the door opened today. Charlotte finished with her client and walked her to the door. After the door closed, she turned to me. "I just realized I forgot my lunch today. Do you mind being the only one on the floor while I go grab something to eat?" "Go get food." I waved her towards the door. "I'll hold down the fort." She smiled. "You're a peach. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to eat until I got home. Oh, and I was totally ogling Mr. Hockey earlier today, but I'm glad it wasn't me the boss caught." I couldn't help but laugh. "Yeah, but you know he's probably got a model girlfriend or something." Shaking her head, she spouted out, "He doesn't. I read the interview. He's single." "Then what's wrong with him?" I asked. "One of these days, we're going to have a girls' night, and you're going to spill your guts on why you are so against dating." "I'm not against it. I just don't want to waste time on dating frogs. Is it too much to want my own Prince Charming?" Charlotte had been after me to spill the details of my breakup, too. But I knew as soon as she and Maria joined forces at book club, there was no way I'd get out of sharing. Better to talk about Mr. Hockey than Ted. She sighed dreamily. "Well, if Mr. Hockey were to waltz in here and ask you to dinner, you'd better let him." "Fine. If Mr. Hockey ever asks me out, I promise to say yes." I couldn't help but roll my eyes at the idea of it. There was no way a guy like him would ever be interested in a girl like me. "Go get your lunch." I shooed her towards the door and finished cleaning up the water on the tile. I'd only stepped out of the break room from putting the mop away when the front door opened and a girl who looked to be about 11 in a pair of white sneakers, jeans that looked like they were getting a little too short, and an oversized lavender Taylor Swift hoodie eagerly bounced in. She was followed by a woman who looked about my age and could put any New York Fashion Week model to shame. While my boss had a slick edge to her fashion, this woman looked elegant in her creamy cashmere sweater, tailored tan pants, and matching raincoat. She lifted a French tip manicured hand to the tortoiseshell shades and placed them on top of her straight bob cut with bangs. Her hair was the same color as her sweater, and I had no doubt it was intentional on the woman's part. Intentional at drawing attention to the crisp eyeliner and plum lipstick, or to the matching gold necklace and earrings that were large enough to catch attention, but not so large as to be gaudy. Smiling in welcome, I introduced myself and asked what I could help them with. The daughter eagerly grinned at me. "Mom says I can dye my hair." "Shush, Penelope." Her mother turned to me, no trace of the bubbliness she'd squashed in her daughter. "She's here for a cut. I called earlier." That feeling in my gut twisted. "Sure, if you want to have a seat over here." I pointed to the seating area. "Penelope, why don't you come and have a seat in my chair and we can discuss what will make the both of you happy?" Her mother let out a sound of disgust. "There's no reason to talk it through. Give her a straight bob like mine." Her daughter had long blonde hair pulled into a ponytail that fell more than halfway down her back. "I don't want a bob, Mom." "Fine, a pixie cut then." "Mom, you said I could dye my hair." The mom sighed and waved me away. "Give us a moment, could you?" I nodded and backed away to my station. Situations like this were part of why so many stylists hated doing kid cuts. Often the kid wanted something a parent didn't approve of, and the stylist ended up caught in the middle. Instead of one client to please, there were two, and it was a delicate balance to please both when they had opposing ideas. In a harsh, hushed tone, the mom spoke to Penelope, and while I couldn't tell exactly what was being said over the elevator music playing over the speaker, I could see the girl's shoulders slump and her chin lower until she stared at her sneakers. She nodded, defeated, and her mother waved me back over. "A straight bob, chin length in front, no color." "Are you sure?" I asked Penelope. "A bob is a pretty drastic change. We could do—" The mom cut me off. "If I wanted your opinion, I'd ask." "I completely understand that. How about I show Penelope a few pictures to help her find a style she likes?" Rolling her eyes, she sighed. "Fine, but I have somewhere to be in an hour, and you better not make me late." "Penelope, follow me so we can get started. I'd hate to ruin any of you and your mom's plans." With a wave of her hand, she dismissed both me and her daughter while she looked at something on her phone. "Okay," I said to myself as I led Penelope to my station. Her mom huffed and sat on the couch before picking up the magazine with Mr. Hockey on it. I hated this. And as I wrapped the drape around Penelope, I hated myself, too. I couldn't do a cut when I knew she didn't want it, but I also couldn't afford not to. I really hoped that I'd find a solution that would satisfy both of them. "Are you sure you want this?" I asked her. Her shoulders folded inwards. "I don't want to cause problems." "Sweetie, my job is to give the client what they want, and it doesn't seem like you want this. It's only a problem if you don't say what you want." "What if what I want makes my mom mad?" "Let me show you some pictures and you can tell me what you like," I offered. "We can go from there." A small smile of hope graced Penelope's lips. "I'd like that." I walked the few steps to where Charlotte had 4 different magazines on her station and picked them all up to take back to Penelope. The first magazine had a picture of a popular pop star on tour. She had long, straight black hair and bangs that fell just above her eyes, covered in a dark, smoky eye. "A lot of people have been asking for this style," I said, pointing to the picture before flipping to a page near the middle of an older photo. But she also had her hair short for her last tour, a classic shoulder-length cut with no bangs. "It's okay, I guess," Penelope said. "Just okay? What's the first feeling you get looking at it?" "Boring." I set the magazine to the side and picked up the next one with an actress starring in an upcoming movie about the girl next door falling for the rock star. She had hair that reached her shoulder blades, only with layers that added a fun bounce to it when flipped out. How about something you can flip? Penelope shook her head without hesitation. My mom would hate it. She hates that actress. Maybe a grown-out pixie? I pointed to another picture of a celebrity at a red carpet charity event raising money for cancer research. The hair was short on the sides and back, but the longer hair on top was long enough to reach her chin. It was similar to a bob in length. Mom hates her too, says she's untalented and overrated. Moving on. I set it aside and picked up the next one where the cast of a popular TV show was posing together on a couch. Do any of these look good to you? She took the magazine from me and flipped through the pages. After a minute, she pointed to a picture where a girl had her hair in beach waves that framed her face. I like this one. Is it the length or how it's styled? Both, but Mom won't like it. That leaves the last magazine. It was another copy of the magazine with Mr. Hockey on it. As good as the short style looked on him, I didn't think Penelope wanted it. If you could do anything with your hair, what would you do? I'd like red hair like yours, Penelope said. I smiled at her. Well, red hair can be fun, but I like yours. A lot of women try hard to get their hair your color. Really? Yep. Blonde can be pretty tricky if it's not done right. It fries the hair and then they have to shave it all off. She let out a little giggle and then her smile dropped. Mom would hate it. What would I hate? Penelope and I both jumped at her mom's voice. She'd moved from the spot near the seating area and now stood at Charlotte's station, looking at the flat iron that had been left out to cool. Chapter 4. Leah. Ma'am, Penelope likes longer hairstyles. Well, that's not what I'm here for. She'll get the bob and be happy, or I'll have you shave it all off. Is there a reason you want her hair so short? I asked. What's the name on the appointment booking? She asked. Erin, I answered. That's right. It's Erin, not Penelope. I'm Erin, and I get to make the decisions. She grabbed the magazine out of my hands. I'm a customer, and I want it cut. So cut it, or I'll see to it that you never get to use a pair of scissors again. Spinning on her heel, she strode to the sitting area and sat down. She stared at the cover of the magazine for a moment, then flipped it open and started turning pages. My hands smoothed the drape around Penelope. Is there anyone I could call who could convince your mom to listen to you? I asked carefully. She perked up. Could you call my dad? He'll get her to stop. Absolutely. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and handed it to her. Do you know his number? What are you doing? Erin asked from her spot on the couch. Thinking fast on my feet, I smiled assuringly at the woman. Just showing her some pictures of celebrities with short hair. It's one of the most popular cuts for models. I know it is. That's why I told you to cut it that way. Now get on with it. I don't have all day to wait for this. She put the magazine down and lifted her rose gold and pink rhinestone-covered phone to take a selfie. This lighting is awful, she complained. Of course. I lifted Penelope's hair. Let's go get this washed so it'll be easier to cut. I led Penelope to the sink while she texted her father from my phone. I started the water and put my hand under the tap to check the temperature. I always felt a bit like Goldilocks as I tried to find the right balance of hot and cold. When I got it to a good temperature, I pulled the black hair tie from Penelope's hair before leaning back the chair so I could start washing. He's not answering. Penelope looked up at me with worried blue eyes. A glance at Erin showed she was checking the time on her gold wristwatch. I'll stall as long as I can. Washing Penelope's hair was a dream. The long, thick strands of her hair glided through my fingers as I applied the shampoo and then the conditioner. To use more time, I did a scalp massage as well. I really hoped her dad would respond soon. But as the wash went on, I was running out of ways to stall. "What would you think about getting a trim?" I asked Penelope, just taking off the split ends. "That's okay." I shut off the water and used a towel to squeeze out the excess water. Back at the chair, I hit the lever to raise it up and started combing her hair into different sections. I went through the motions of giving a trim, all while hoping her dad would come to his daughter's rescue. We talked about school and art while I snipped away, bonding over the awkwardness of teenage boys trying to impress girls. Penelope had a smile on her face by the time I finished blow-drying her hair. Penelope's mom looked up from her phone as soon as the hairdryer stopped. "Why is her hair still long?" She got off the couch and strode over to where I stood. "Are you completely incompetent?" "If you'd just listen to your daughter." Erin's nostrils flared. "She's 12. You're supposed to listen to me, you dumb shrew." "Ma'am." Her voice rose in volume with each word until she was yelling, "I want to see the manager now!" I heard the door to Priscilla's office door open, and my shoulders dropped. "What is going on out here?" my boss asked. "Are you in charge?" Erin asked. "I paid for a simple cut, and she's wasting my time with a trim instead." Priscilla looked at me with a mixture of disbelief and annoyance. "Cut her hair." "But, oh, for the love—" Erin picked up a pair of clippers from another station and walked towards Penelope. "I'll cut it myself." I jumped between Penelope and her. The door to the salon opened, and a cold gust of wind blew in. Erin paused to look at the door and dropped the clippers when she saw him. The most gorgeous man I've ever laid my eyes on stood just inside the door. His blonde hair was windswept, and an icy tempest raged in his furious blue eyes. He was the embodiment of a storm waiting to be released. The loose-fitting Glacier Bay hockey jersey and jeans did nothing to disguise the pure strength in his build. The pictures in the magazines did not do Mr. Hockey justice. When he spotted Penelope, he made an immediate beeline straight for her. He cradled her face with one hand and ran the other over her hair. Penelope visibly relaxed now that he was here, and I could see why. He'd stormed in like a superhero ready to save the day. "Are you okay?" he asked Penelope. I recognized that voice, and on second look, I recognized the scruff on that jawline, too. Super Dad indeed. "I'm fine, Dad. Can I have a brownie sundae from Charlie's?" He softened for a moment as he smiled at her, then pulled the drape off her and lifted her off the chair to stand by his side. "Anything you want, sweet pea. We can eat lunch there tomorrow." Erin stomped her foot. "She can't have that much sugar. It's not in her diet plan." His gaze found Erin, and the fury that had been banked while he was talking with his daughter roared back to life. "What were you thinking?" he demanded of her. Erin took a step back. "I don't need to consult you on something as simple as cutting hair, and a salon in New York never would have given me this much trouble." His entire body stiffened, and he seemed to grow another 6 inches as his spine straightened. "No, you just made a decision for her that she was against and took away her phone so she couldn't call me." Erin crossed her arms. "It's not my fault she lost it. She's a dumb kid." His jaw clenched, and I had a feeling that he was biting back words. "I'm taking her home." "It's not your day with her. Penelope, get back in the chair." Penelope moved further into her dad's side, and he kept his arm firmly in place around her. "I get 1 weekend a month with her. Last I checked, I haven't had my turn yet." "We both know it's not this weekend. You have back-to-back games." "Penelope likes the games." He looked down at her. "Don't you, sweet pea?" Penelope smiled. Can I sit in the team suite? Absolutely. He turned his attention back to Erin. I've already talked to my lawyer. You should be getting a call from yours any second. If you want to whine in court again, that's fine. You're the one paying for it. Her phone rang, and Erin looked at it before answering. As she talked to whoever it was, he turned to me and my boss. I'm sorry for your trouble. He pulled out a handful of bills and held them out to my boss. This should cover the cost, and there's some extra. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you saving my daughter. Priscilla gave him a flirtatious smile that bordered on predatory. No problem. You can bring her in anytime. Dad? Penelope pulled on his arm and pointed at me. Leah's the one that helped me. For the first time since he'd stormed in, he looked at me, and it felt like I'd been struck by lightning as soon as his eyes met mine. Surprise made his eyes go wide as he recognized me. Thank you, really. You have no idea how much it means to me that you listened to what Penelope wanted. Anyone would have. He shook his head. Not everyone would stand up to Erin. Dad, Penelope said, bouncing up and down like she had been when she walked into the salon. Can Leah go to Charlie's with us? He looked at me, a little lost for words. Dad, you say we deserve brownie sundaes on bad days. Mom yelled at her. That makes it a bad day. You're right. He nodded at her and then smiled at me. Charlotte walked back into the salon from her lunch break. Her eyes went wide as soon as she saw him. You're Mr. Hockey. His smile dimmed, and he rubbed his free hand sheepishly up and down his neck. It's Nate, actually. Leah, will you go to Charlie's with us? Penelope asked me, completely unfazed that Charlotte was fangirling over her dad. Chapter 5. Leah. Please, Nate added. I'd love to buy you lunch to thank you for helping her. Charlotte's eyes went even bigger as she stared at me and mouthed, What is happening? I debated for only a moment, Charlotte's earlier words coming to mind. No, he wasn't asking me out on a date. Penelope would be there. The thought of spending a meal with hunky superdad and his sweet daughter? That sounded better than the cup of instant noodles I had at home. I'd love to. Great. I'll text you the time for lunch tomorrow and we'll figure it out. Nate squeezed Penelope's hand. Let's get out of here, sweet pea, while your mom is distracted. Erin was seething as she listened to whatever the person said on the other side of her phone call. She paced in quick clips across the tile. Nate kept his arm around Penelope and positioned himself between her and Erin as they walked past. Charlotte came over to me looking a bit nervous as she glanced between our boss and a fuming Erin who looked 2 seconds away from breathing fire. What did I miss? Charlotte asked me. She wanted me to cut Penelope's hair into a short bob. Penelope only wanted a trim. Mr. Hockey came to the rescue. And asked you out to lunch. Don't forget that. My boss sighed. Leah, this whole mess could have been avoided if you'd simply done the cut. Hair grows back. The kid would have gotten over it. Erin hung up her phone call. If she were in a cartoon, steam would be blowing out her ears. She whirled around and lifted her phone high. Hey, besties, you won't believe the day I've had. I've never had such a bad experience. I booked a cut for my daughter, and not only did she waste my time going through the motions of washing hair, but seriously, she shampooed for 20 minutes. It was creepy. Then she refused to do the cut. She turned the camera to look at me before turning it back on herself. Looking at my boss, she demanded, I want her fired now. My boss looked at the phone, Erin, and then me. Pack up your things, Leah. You're done. But no, you're fired. Erin smirked and went back to her phone. That's how it's done, besties. Demand respect and get things done. She put her sunglasses on, gave a kiss to the camera, and then strode out the door. I turned to my boss. "You can't seriously be firing me over that. I was protecting Penelope from that witch." Charlotte nodded. "Seriously, Mr. Hockey even paid you for the service." I noticed the cash Nate had handed her conveniently was no longer visible. My boss's phone started pinging and she pulled it out of her pocket. She frowned, and as it kept pinging, showed me the notifications. The salon was getting hammered with 1-star reviews. "You're done, Leah. You're a liability, and the only way for me to salvage this is to tell people you're fired." "Can I at least get my last check?" I asked. "You owe me the booth fee for this month." "It's only the 2nd. With all this bad press, I'll be lucky if I can find someone to take it over in February." Priscilla retreated to her office, closing the door behind her. I started cleaning up the things I'd used for Penelope's trim, and Charlotte grabbed a broom to sweep. We were silent, and I appreciated the moment to gather my thoughts. When I woke up this morning, I never would have thought I'd lose my job, and now probably my apartment. I especially never thought Super Dad would end up being Mr. Hockey. Hannah had been absolutely right about his protective streak, and it made him all the more attractive. Not that it would help me pay my rent or my bills. I'd probably have to take Maria up on her offer to sleep on her couch. Charlotte put her arms around me and gave me a hug. "You'll find somewhere better. Put me down as a reference." "Thanks, Char." I returned the hug before getting my things from my locker and returning to where Charlotte stood by my case. "I'll miss working with you." "Oh, you aren't getting rid of me that easy. I want to hear all about your date with that hunk at book club." "It's not a date. It's food, and he's paying. I'll see you in 3 weeks at the book garden." Walking out of the salon with my case, I hurried home to my little apartment. The temperature was dropping quickly, and I felt the cold wind down to my bones. I lugged the case up 3 flights of stairs, and I was sweaty and out of breath by the time I reached my door. A bright yellow eviction note was taped to the chipped white paint above the number 12. "No, no, no," I muttered to myself as I opened my door and put the case inside. I locked my door and hurried to my landlord's door down the hall before knocking on it. Benny opened his apartment door only as far as the chain would allow. "Benny, why is there an eviction notice on my door?" I asked. "Leah, your payment is late." "You promised I'd have until the end of the week to pay it," I argued. I'd counted every dollar I had to make sure I could pay rent for January. Between all the holiday closures at the salon, I hadn't had enough money to go home for Christmas or mail any presents home to my parents. He shrugged. "That was before I found out you were fired. You didn't pay, and that means you're out." "Come on, Benny, give me a chance," I pleaded. "Be out by the date on the notice, or whatever is in the apartment will go towards the balance." He slammed the door in my face. My phone started ringing, and I looked down to see the florist calling. A small spark of hope bubbled. Maybe they needed me to cover a shift. I took a big gulp of air, and in my most cheerful voice answered with, "Hi, Emma." "Leah?" Emma paused. "I wasn't expecting you to answer. This is awkward." "Do you need me to come in?" I asked. "No." She sounded panicked. "There's no easy way to say this, Leah. You've been so wonderful to work with, but someone tagged the shop in an unflattering video of you. We don't have a choice." "Please, Emma, I'll do anything." "I'm sorry, Leah. Maybe if this has all died down, we can talk about you helping with the Valentine's Day rush. There's no way we can have you working here with everyone being so upset." This couldn't be happening. I tried to think of a way to pay rent, but without the paycheck from the salon and the florist, there was no way. I reached my apartment and found Mrs. Jack standing there with a plate of chocolate chip cookies and a glass of milk. "I hear you've had a bad day." I simply nodded and picked up a cookie. Mrs. Jacks nodded towards her open door. "Come now, let's sit." On autopilot, I followed her into her place and took a seat on the floral print couch. She set the cookies and milk on the glass coffee table before sitting in the matching chair across from me. "Now, dear, why don't you tell me all about it? I got fired twice today. I can't pay my rent. I'm going to be homeless." She pointed to the cookie in my hand. "Take a bite." Doing as she directed, I took a bite, and the warm, gooey chocolate hit my tongue in all its delicious glory. If Mrs. Jacks ever wanted to apply for a job at La Petite, she'd simply need to give Maria one of these cookies. I should call Maria and see if she needed to fire me, too. I took another bite, appreciating that the cookie wasn't hard or chewy, but the spot in between. After I'd taken my last bite, Mrs. Jacks handed me the cold glass of milk. "Was it the Hockey Housewife's video?" she asked. I lifted my brow. Hockey Housewife? Picking up her TV remote, she pulled up one of her saved shows. Season 1 of Hockey Housewife had a cast of gorgeous women in heels standing on the ice, and there on the end was a younger-looking Erin with a hand on her belly and a smile that suggested she had it all. That was her first season. I still remember the episode when Nate found out she was pregnant. He bought her the biggest pink diamond I'd ever seen. But when they broke up, he was absolutely devastated and dropped off the news. I couldn't believe it when they said he was going to be playing hockey for Glacier Bay. 2 cookies later, she was talking me through his stats and how he was the highest scoring player on the team so far this season. "Oh, it's time for my show." I spent the rest of the afternoon and the next morning watching soaps with her and forgetting about rent and everything awful. Chapter 6. Nate. The next morning, after getting up late, I got Penelope settled with her favorite show on the TV and pulled out the identical artist kit I'd bought for my place. I'd learned long ago that Erin didn't like to let things leave her house, even if they belonged to our daughter. Penelope was smiling by the time I got into my office to make another call to my lawyer. Between all the drama at the salon and the game last night, I hadn't had time to do more than text him. "Nate," he greeted me. "My phone has been ringing off the hook because of you. I need more custody." He sighed. "You and I both know the judge doesn't want to do that. You're lucky you have 1 weekend a month with your unpredictable work schedule. You're gone too much, and the judge wants a stable home environment. Erin isn't stable. She tried to shave Penelope's head. The thought of it still had me feeling furious. She would have if I hadn't shown up in time." Another sigh. "We can add haircuts to the parental agreement. That won't stop her, and you know it." If Leah hadn't listened to Penelope, I took a deep breath. Leah was an angel in human form, and the way she'd put herself between Erin and my daughter, it'd been enough to make me want to kneel with gratitude at the gorgeous redhead's feet. I was looking forward to lunch with her later. Penelope had told me the entire thing 3 times on the way to the arena last night. How the moment Leah realized that Penelope didn't want her haircut like Erin said, she'd tried to find a compromise, and when that didn't work, she'd given her phone to Penelope to get a hold of me. She'd stalled and then only done a trim when she'd had no choice but to start cutting. "Look, Nate, I can put the papers in, but I can't make any promises. Erin is already trying to get you in trouble for taking Penelope when it's not your day to have her. She's saying you can pay her or she's going to call the police. We both know the judge hates it when police have to get involved." Of course, Erin wanted more money. She always wanted money. We went back and forth for a while. The last thing I needed was Erin calling the cops on me and the press catching wind of that. After the issue was finally settled, I decided to take a quick shower. Showers had become my zen space when things got bad with Erin, and it had remained that way when I wanted to wash away everything negative she brought into my life. Something about the water let me wash away the worries and the stress until the next time Erin did something that drove me insane. I grabbed the shower gel out of my bag from the rink, and once again, it wasn't until the smell of vanilla cupcakes reached my nose that I realized I had grabbed the sabotaged bottle out of my bag. I'd figure out who completed the switch, and then they'd need to watch their soap carefully. I left my room dressed in my sweats and jersey, ready to relax until game time. Penelope looked up from where she'd sprawled out on the gray couch with her fuzzy purple blanket. "Dad?" "Yeah, sweet pea?" I said as I sat down next to her. "Is it time for Charlie's?" Glancing at my watch, I bit back a groan. We'd have to leave within the next 40 minutes to have time for lunch before the game. I haven't had a chance to talk to Leah. "Dad," she whined, "call her." "Anything for you." I picked up my phone and showed her when I hit the call button. The phone rang 3 times before Leah answered. The pause after we greeted each other was a little awkward, so I got straight to the point. "How does noon sound for lunch? Will that interfere with work?" I asked. There was a long pause. I checked to see if the call dropped, but it showed that we were still connected. "Leah?" Finally, she answered, "I don't have work." "Great. Text me your address and I'll pick you up." "You don't need to do that. I can meet you there." "This is my treat, and Charlie's can get pretty busy on game day." "We can go another day. I don't want to make you late for your game." "You won't. I promise." A woman in the background who sounded a lot like my great aunt asked, "Is that him?" Leah confirmed it, and the woman said, "Are you going to kiss him?" Leah hushed the older woman, and I nearly choked on a laugh. It sounded like she put her hand over the mic so I couldn't hear her answer. Just a muffled conversation, and I couldn't tell what was being said. Curiosity burned, but I decided it was for the best if I didn't think about kissing the attractive redhead. I couldn't remember the last time I had kissed someone. Erin had seen to it that any woman I looked at more than once quickly dropped out of my life. It was easier if all I focused on was Penelope and hockey. I didn't have the time or energy to date anyway. Leah came back on the line. "I'll see you soon. I'll be waiting outside so you don't have to come up." "I don't mind. Trust me, my neighbor is a huge hockey fan. You'll be here all night answering questions for her if I don't." I smiled at that. "Is that who you were talking to?" She confirmed it and added, "She's been telling me all about the season. She finds it abominable that I don't know anything about hockey." My smile grew bigger at that. "She sounds like my kind of person." "I can give you her number, although in full disclosure, I'm not sure if she'd date you or try to set you up with her granddaughter." The woman in question answered in the background, "I'm keeping him for myself if you don't snatch him up, dearie." I laughed, and it felt good to laugh after everything that had happened earlier. "I'll pick you up soon." Leah sighed. "I'll text you the address." We said goodbye, and I got changed into my navy suit for the game. It was my night for the post-game interview tonight. The press would inevitably ask me about my injury and how it felt to be back on the ice. I had that speech memorized, so it wouldn't take too long. I turned to Penelope. "You good sitting in the suite tonight, P?" I asked her. She got that teasing glint in her eye. "What's the penalty, ref?" I smiled at her. "I don't have rink-side tickets for this game, so it's the suite, or I see if Angelica can babysit." She shuddered at the mention of the babysitter the agency found me after the last nanny quit. The woman might resemble a witch out of a fairy tale with warts and a hump, but she made sure Penelope got her work done and was in bed on time. Penelope just didn't like the traditional stew the older woman had made for dinner. I couldn't blame her, as the condo had smelled like tomatoes and vinegar for a good week after I'd tossed the pot. Angelica smells like feet. I picked the box. Can I bring my pencils and sketchbook? Sure thing. Now get ready unless you don't want Charlie's. She hopped up from the couch faster than a cat avoiding a sprinkler and ran for her room. 10 minutes later, she had a blue Glacier Bay jersey on, jeans, and her white sneakers. Her hair was back in its usual ponytail. I held out my hand for her, and we were off to get Leah. The best part of Glacier Bay is that it doesn't take more than 20 minutes to drive from one end of the city to the other on the highway. Taking the back roads, it took me 15 to get to Leah's place. While Glacier Bay doesn't have a bad side of town, per se, Leah was definitely not living in the best part. Her building was on a street of older buildings that were showing their age. Cracks in the sidewalk, graffiti on one of the walls, and unshoveled sidewalks. Leah waited on the curb next to a red brick building in a puffy white coat and canary yellow scarf. She looked like a cross between a snowman and a marshmallow that had been set on fire. Her red hair spilled over her shoulders in fancy waves. Her hands were tucked into her pockets, and she was fidgeting as I pulled up to the curb. Chapter 7. Leah. The truck with faded green paint that pulled up to the curb in front of me was not what I expected, but it somehow fit Nate better than the sleek red Mustang I'd envisioned. Nate hopped out and walked around the truck to where I was standing. The navy suit made his eyes pop, and his hair looked like he ran his fingers through it a few times in exasperation. There was a lock that fell just above his right eye, and I wanted to reach up to smooth it away. I clenched my fist inside my pocket to stop myself. I looked away from him and stared at the giant slush puddle that stood between me and the passenger door. The drain clearly wasn't working in this section of the street. I looked back at him, a bit sheepishly. I hate to break it to you, but I don't think I can hop far enough to clear the slush and land in your truck. I'd opted for a skirt and fleece-lined tights for dinner as I wasn't sure if Charlie's was a fancy place or not. Based on how Nate was dressed, I was glad I hadn't worn blue jeans. Why don't you get in on my side instead? The truck has a bench seat, so it'll be easier than trying to find an unslushy spot. We walked around his truck, and he held the door open for me to get in. His truck was higher up than I expected, and the pencil skirt wouldn't let me lift my leg high enough. I turned to Nate, unsure of what to do. "May I?" he asked. I nodded, and he put his warm hands on my hips as he lifted me up to sit on the seat. I tucked my feet in and turned to slide across the seat, except Penelope sat there instead. "Hi!" she chirped from the passenger seat, leaving me to sit between her and her dad. Scooting to the middle, I gave her a smile. "Hey, Charlie's is the best. You're going to love it. They make brownies as big as my head." "Do they now? And the fudge ice cream is the very best flavor." She continued to talk, but I became distracted as Nate got into the driver's seat and pulled on his seatbelt. His fingers brushed my hip as he buckled himself in. He handed me my own belt, and I felt my cheeks warm as I moved to buckle myself in. I was grateful for Penelope as she kept up her chatter for the entire drive to the restaurant. She didn't seem to notice or mind that I was sitting close enough to her dad to realize that he smelled like amber musk and a hint of vanilla cupcakes. Penelope showed me her professional colored pencils and sketchbook and the fancy case she could carry them around in. I was still wondering why he chose to smell like cupcakes when he pulled up outside of the restaurant with a big glowing sign declaring it was Charlie's. There were cars lining up around the block, and photographers treating the entrance like the red carpet. My jaw dropped. Is it always this busy during lunch? No, that's why I like coming here for lunch. Nate drove us up to the valet and got out to hand the keys to the attendant. Another attendant opened Penelope's door, and she hurried to put her colored pencils back in their case. 3 of them didn't quite go into their slots and fell to the ground. The attendant bent down to grab them and help her put them away. I wasn't going to be able to get out on that side anytime soon. Nate reached in for my hand to help me out on the driver's side. I scooted as elegantly as I could while avoiding a knee to the steering wheel. Nate blocked the camera as I slid out of the truck. With a steadying hand at my back, Nate guided me past the photographers and into the restaurant. Penelope was already inside and had her artist case with her. The hostess smiled in greeting. "Mr. Mitchell, it's so good to have you and Miss Penelope with us again so soon. Your usual table? Make it for 3. The hostess smiled at me. "Of course. We have a table by the window if you like." "Perfect," Nate said. The hostess checked my coat and scarf before leading us through the restaurant to a table covered with a white tablecloth and 4 table settings. The hostess quickly grabbed one of the place settings to get it out of the way. Penelope took one side of the table and Nate helped me into the chair near the window before taking the remaining seat. A server appeared, filling our glasses with water and asking what else he could get us, before he disappeared with the extra chair. Penelope pulled out her sketchbook, turned to a new page, and started to draw on it. Completely absorbed in what she was doing, she disregarded everything around her. Nate and I might as well be alone for how much she ignored us. She was completely comfortable in a jersey and jeans, despite the fact that everyone else in the room was dressed in their finest. I think I even saw a man in a tux with a woman wearing a dress from Paris Fashion Week. The ambiance of the place screamed cozy elegance. The lighting was charming but dim to give the feeling of coziness. The walls were painted in warm tones, while the floor was a dark wood. I fidgeted and felt completely inadequate in my yellow hand-knit sweater and pencil skirt. "Dad, can I have your phone?" Penelope asked. "I want to look up how to draw a fox." Nate handed over his phone without question, and Penelope snatched it like a toddler being offered a cookie. She quickly started searching for the video, ignoring the 2 of us once more. "So," Nate said. "So," I answered. He smiled at me, and I noticed that his gaze had a softness that made him feel approachable. "Do you like doing hair?" he asked. I picked up my glass of water and took a sip as I thought about what to say. "I like making people feel pretty, but the salon wasn't my favorite place I've worked at." "Was?" The server returned with our drinks, saving me from having to answer. He carefully set the lemonade Penelope had ordered in front of her and placed a little bowl with lemon slices for my water by my glass. After setting down an extra glass of water in front of Nate, he pulled out his notepad and asked, "Are you ready to order?" Penelope practically bounced out of her chair. "I'd like to get the lasagna and a big brownie sundae with chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla ice cream, extra sprinkles, and chocolate sauce." The server smiled as he wrote it all down, then looked at me. "And for you, miss?" I looked at my menu. My eyes nearly bulged out of my head at the prices. I could get a week's worth of groceries for the cost of Penelope's order. I looked for the cheapest thing on there, a regular house salad, and ordered that. "Any dessert?" he asked. I shook my head, not wanting to run the bill higher. "No, that's all." Now that it was Nate's turn to order, he said, "How about one of your appetizer sampler platters for the table, a steak for me, and another brownie sundae to go?" The server wrote it all down, clarifying how Nate wanted his steak cooked, and walked away to put the order in. Nate leaned back in his chair as he relaxed. "You can take the sundae home with you." "That's really sweet of you. You didn't have to get me a dessert," I told him. "I believe it was part of the deal when we invited you to join us." He leaned forward, putting an elbow on the table so he could rest his chin on his hand. His smile was stunning, and I was glad to know what he looked like without the sunglasses. When he looked at me, I knew I had the entirety of his attention. I shook my head and put on my best smile. "I hear you have a big game later." His smile got bigger. "It should be a good game. Do you like hockey?" "I honestly don't know. I've never watched it." He looked at me, surprised. "So you just talked to your neighbor about hockey then?" Mrs. Jax was trying to distract me and cheer me up. "What did you need cheering up for?" he asked. I hesitated. Penelope gasped, "Dad!" He snapped his attention to her, and with her eyes wide, she looked at me apologetically before handing Nate his phone. "Mom got Leah fired!" Penelope cried. Erin was smiling at the screen as she walked in front of the salon, talking about how important it is to protect children everywhere. Nate looked at me. "You were fired?" I nodded. The bad press left my boss with no choice. "I'll make this up to you. I'll get my lawyer on the phone and we'll make this right." He started tapping away on his phone. "That's very kind of you, but I'll be fine." "Leah, I am so sorry you got tangled up in Erin's garbage." I took a sip of my water and added a lemon slice. "It's not your fault, and you aren't responsible for her actions." He sighed, and the silence stretched on. I took another sip of my water and looked around once more. People had noticed Nate, and I caught a couple people trying to take sneaky selfies on their phones. I'd never been one for the spotlight, and the attention was uncomfortable. The server brought the food out. He apologized for the appetizer taking so long, but we were just happy to have the food. The smell of Penelope's lasagna had my stomach grumbling as I picked at my salad, so I took a mozzarella stick from the appetizer platter. Nate set his fork down. "Do you want something besides salad? Charlie makes really good burgers, too." "No, the salad is great." My stomach just couldn't get past the knots my anxiety had made earlier. Penelope, bless her, decided to change the topic for us. "Look at my picture." She moved her pencils to the side of the picture to better show us, but the purple one kept rolling until it fell right off the table. It bounced when it hit the floor before it rolled under the table. She was quick to shove her chair back and dive under the table. Her chair tipped and clattered to the ground. People looked in our direction to see what caused the commotion, and I could feel my face warm. She was still looking under the table for it when I heard her, "Dad, it's by your foot." Nate more carefully scooted his chair back and knelt down to pick up the colored pencil, which had now rolled closer to me. I leaned down as well and heard people gasp. I took a deep breath before sitting up and looking around to see phones pointed in our direction. Penelope got out from under the table with her colored pencil in hand. Penelope smiled, oblivious to the people around us. "Did she say yes?" someone asked, and then there were flashes from the other side of the window. I looked at Nate, my eyes wide, and saw his were just as big as he knelt in front of me. He stood up quickly, placing a handful of bills on the table before taking my left hand in his as he helped me from my chair. "We're going," he said quietly, smiling and nodding politely at people around us. Penelope opened her mouth to argue, but one look at her dad had her putting her pencils and sketchbook back in their case as fast as she could and reaching for his free hand. He hurried us through the restaurant, ignoring the congratulations people offered. A man with dark hair and brown eyes fiddled with the button on his suit jacket where he stood next to the hostess by the front door. The hostess was already holding my coat and scarf. Nate only let go of my hand so I could pull on my coat and scarf. The man looked at us apologetically. "I'm so sorry, Nate. I've sent the valet to get your truck. It's bad out there. We had a celebrity in the back room for lunch who people wanted a shot of." "It's not your fault, Charlie," Nate said as he looked outside. Our server rushed towards us with a takeout bag in hand. "Your desserts." Charlie grabbed the bag. "I'll help walk you out." Nate gave his thanks as we saw his truck pull up just outside the door. The moment Charlie opened the door and held up the food, I was blinded by the flash of the cameras. The press was furiously taking our photo, and I heard people yelling over each other, but there were too many, and I wasn't sure what they were asking. Nate helped Penelope into the truck before lifting me in. He ignored the reporters around us and handed me the bag that was in Charlie's hand. He rounded the front of his truck and didn't hesitate to take off through the gap Charlie and his staff created for us. "I'll fix this," he told me. Chapter 8. Nate. When we arrived at the arena, a media frenzy had swarmed the doors. Each flash of the camera made me more twitchy. I loved a lot of things about hockey. The publicity, not so much. Thankfully, security had traffic blocked off to the private parking area. Jeff recognized me and waved me through. It was only after I pulled into my parking spot and shut off my truck that I let out a sigh of relief. Dad? Penelope's voice was small as she sat next to me. Did I do something wrong? I shook my head vehemently and put my arm around her, and she seemed to shrink under it. No, sweet pea. This is all a misunderstanding. I'll get it taken care of. Penelope nodded, but her voice was still quieter than I'd like as she responded. Okay. I tried to shield her from the worst of the press as she grew up. Hard to do when Erin lived her life in front of a camera and didn't seem to understand the need for personal space or boundaries. My lawyer had a vacation home thanks to the amount I paid him to get Erin to finally understand that Penelope was off limits when it came to the spotlight. Leah patted Penelope's knee with her hand. Don't blame yourself for a thing. People are just interested in knowing what your dad is up to. My stomach twisted at her words. Thanks to me, there was a press nightmare outside the arena, and I'd managed to drag Leah into it too. When I'd walked into that salon earlier and seen the same woman I'd spent months flirting with, standing up for Penelope, it had made my gut twist in a not entirely unpleasant manner. If things had been different, if I'd maybe run into her under less stressful circumstances, no point letting my thoughts go down that path. I'd learned long ago to not dwell on what-ifs. The reality of everything hit me hard. This mess better not impact negotiations my agent was working on. No doubt he wouldn't be thrilled to get the call from the Glacier Bay PR team. I picked up my phone and sent a quick text to Hannah. My phone buzzed almost immediately. Hannah must have been waiting for me, but then again, the woman always seemed to know what was happening when it came to the players on the team. Lou liked to groan that it cramped his style to have his little sister monitoring the team's PR, but then he'd turn around and brag about her to anyone who would listen. She really was good at her job. Of all the players I would have bet on causing a media circus, I wouldn't have bet on you. Another person I owed an apology to, and I texted her back. Sorry. The dots showing she was typing disappeared and reappeared. It's fine, Nate. This is my job. Coach approved us meeting as soon as you get to the arena. Head to my office with the woman. I promise I'll have you in the locker room in time to get ready for the puck drop. With one hand, I pinched the bridge of my nose and let out a long sigh. If Coach wanted me to meet with Hannah now, this whole thing would be worse than a puck to the ankle. A warm hand gently squeezed my arm around Penelope. I dropped the hand from my nose and saw Leah offering a soft smile with worry in her green eyes. I put on a brave face and pulled the keys out of the ignition. It'll be okay, Leah. Hannah, the team's PR manager, wants to meet with us real quick. Penelope perked up. Do you think she has those chocolates in her office? For the first time since Charlie's, I smiled. I'm sure she does. Good. I want to put one on my sundae. Remembering the food on Leah's lap, I sighed once more. Best we take those inside. No need to let the food go to waste. We got out of the truck and I guided us through the building to Hannah's office on the 3rd floor. Her office was small, little more than a glorified broom closet outside the team's conference room. When I opened the door, I saw her attempting to tuck a frazzled piece of her curly hair into a tight bun. I don't think I'd ever seen her wear it down like in the photo on the ID badge hanging from the lanyard around her neck. She stood quickly and straightened her blazer. She smiled genuinely at Penelope before offering a hand for Leah to shake. Leah shifted the takeout from one hand to the other, and I wanted to kick myself for making her carry it all the way up here. I took it from her while Hannah and Leah said something about the bakery. Let's move this next door, Hannah suggested. That way Penelope can eat before she decimates my emergency chocolate. Leah smiled at that. and I wished I'd been the one to make her smile. "Aw," Penelope whined. "Come on, Han." Hannah's mouth twitched at Penelope's nickname for her. "Maybe after the game if we win." Penelope narrowed her eyes. "That's what you said last time. We can discuss it after you've eaten." I could see the moment Penelope remembered the ice cream because her eyes lit up and she was all too eager to get into the conference room and take the bag from my hand. She grabbed the first container with her dessert, leaving the other box with Leah's in the bag. I'd lost my appetite, but I'd hoped the sugar would help Leah feel a little better about such an awful day. I pulled out Leah's dessert and handed it to her. Penelope had taken one of the black office chairs at the far end of the conference table and was so focused on her sundae that I knew she'd be oblivious to most of what we had to say. Just to make sure, I gave her my phone to play the tower takeover game I knew she liked. I'd make sure when I took Penelope back to Erin's that she got her phone back. Leah, on the other hand, didn't do more than poke a spoon at her sundae as I sat next to her. I couldn't blame her. She'd lost her job and was now the subject of an online onslaught. Hannah didn't waste time once I sat. She had her business face on. "Nate, I'm going to get right to it. The press has been looking for a reason to knock you off your Father of the Year pedestal, and your ex is giving them all the ammunition they need. They've picked up her salon video and are spreading it faster than a power play on open ice." "What do we do?" Leah asked. "That depends on the two of you. You could tell the press it's all a big misunderstanding, and they'll write their conspiracy theories. Or we can ignore it and hope the game distracts them until some other idiot catches their attention." It was starting to feel like the third period and I was down by 2. "Can we get Erin to take down the video?" I asked. "The damage is done. Even if Erin took it down, it's available in so many places." Erin lied in that video. Hannah shrugged. "Even if she did a retraction, it wouldn't spread as far. But with the gossip rag salivating over something to print, you could release a response in your post-game interview tonight." My shoulders sagged. For years, I'd quietly let my lawyer handle Erin and ignored any requests for comments. I really didn't want to break that streak tonight in an interview that should be focused on the game. "I know you don't want to, Nate, but they will ask anyway." I nodded in resignation. Leah reached over with her hand to give mine a gentle squeeze of reassurance. "What if I say something?" Leah asked. "Would that help?" Her offer did more to gut me. Leah owed me nothing. I was the one who came in and messed up her life. She hadn't asked me for anything. Anyone else in her shoes would have demanded compensation for damages. Erin would have been suing for emotional distress and then some. I would have easily ended up losing months of my life in court just to reach a settlement. "Not really, no." Hannah shook her head and pointed a thumb at me. "The press wants this guy to talk." Leah's phone buzzed and she pulled it out of her pocket. I saw the name Mom flash on the screen. She looked at Hannah, who told her if she answered it, she shouldn't answer any questions about today when it came to me and Penelope. Leah stepped away to the corner and talked as quietly as she could into her phone. There was a lot of pausing as she listened to whatever her mom had to say on the other end, but I saw the distress in her posture as it slumped, and she tried to reassure her mom that everything was okay. Just like that, determination straightened my spine. It would be okay for her. I'd make sure of it. I looked at Hannah. "Write whatever you want me to say and I'll say it." Chapter 9. Leah. My mom's voice sounded stressed and panicked and full of so much worry. I wished I could reach through my phone to comfort her. It'd been months since I'd been able to hug my parents, and I wished more than anything that I could have right then. Strangers were camping out on the sidewalk, yelling and asking for her to open the door. They'd been loud enough that the neighbors had called to complain, and my father hadn't been able to sleep after his doctor's visit. I was glad Hannah had told me not to tell her anything about meeting Penelope at the salon. My mom didn't need to know I lost my job yesterday. I didn't want to add to her troubles since moving home wasn't an option, and she already worried about me paying off my loans. I'm so sorry, Mom. I had no idea they'd bother you and Dad. Oh, Leah, it's not your fault. But I felt like it was. If I'd just done the cut, none of this would have happened. If I'd just done what Erin wanted, I'd still have a job and a paycheck. But I looked at Penelope where she was finishing her ice cream, and I knew that I wouldn't do anything different if given the chance. I looked at Nate, and he was talking with Hannah intently. Seeing her had been a big surprise and relief. If someone had told me I'd be with her tonight, I would have rolled my eyes. My mom was still talking, and I waited for an opening to jump in. I know someone who might have advice. Let me talk to them. Keep the blinds closed and don't answer the door or any unknown phone numbers. Are you safe, Leah? Mom asked. I only paused for a moment to consider her question. As crazy as everything is, I am. Nate got me out of the restaurant fast. I'll have to make him some fudge as thanks. Mom, I smiled, and for the first time since answering her call, I knew that she was starting to relax too. Don't mom me. That boy might be the cause of all this, but if he's taking care of you, I'll send him as many fudge bites as he wants. I couldn't help but smile at that. I hope you're sending me some too. She clucked her tongue. Who else is going to hand-deliver them? Well, I can't guarantee all of them will make it. Ophelia Ray Owens, you will deliver all of them with a thank you card or I'll put you on a fudge ban. Yes, ma'am, I conceded. Maria made a lot of great things, but nothing compared to Mom's fudge. Good. Now you go talk to those people. I have to call Haley and tell her not to come over for movie night tonight. I don't want her caught in all this drama. My little bubble of happiness burst just like that, but I pushed it aside as we said our goodbyes. When I put my phone away and looked at the others, I found Hannah was talking on her phone and Nate was crouched by Penelope's chair as he spoke to her and took his phone back. They'd given me as much privacy as they could while I talked to my mom, which I appreciated immensely. Nate stood and ruffled Penelope's hair before coming over to where I stood. Was that your parents? I nodded. Reporters are on their lawn. Can they go to a hotel? I shook my head, not wanting to tell him that there was no way my parents had the money to stay somewhere else tonight. I told them to close their blinds and lock the doors. That's good. He stuffed his hands into his pockets. If things get bad, let me know and I'll pay for a stay at whatever hotel they choose. You don't have to do that. My heart melted just a bit more that he'd made the offer. He'd done so much already, and here he was getting sucked into drama he could have avoided if he hadn't been trying to be nice to me. This whole thing is my fault. If you weren't out with me, the press wouldn't be harassing your family. In fact, it's a good idea for you to stay somewhere else tonight. He turned back to Hannah and asked her to arrange a room for me before turning back to me. Do your parents live close? I can send someone to pick them up and take them to the hotel. I shook my head. They live on the West Coast. The lift of his eyebrows told me he was surprised by my answer. Do you get to see them often? I haven't been back yet. Work and bills make it hard, although I suppose I have the time now. His gaze dropped as he looked at his shoes. I'd made things awkward. Just another reason I couldn't get a boyfriend, and another thing to tell Charlotte if we ever had the girls' night she'd brought up. I don't see my family much either. Erin always changes when I can get Penelope. Makes it hard to travel to see them. Where do they live? I asked. Minnesota. The pause between us lengthened. I shifted on my feet uncomfortably. Turning away from him, I spotted my melting ice cream and the drippy mess it had created on the conference table. I'm so sorry, I blurted out. guilt eating at me that I'd wasted so much food after Nate had been so thoughtful to get it for me. Are there napkins somewhere? I'll clean it up. Hannah waved her hand. I'll get someone to take care of it. Nate, you need to get to warm-ups. Leah, why don't you and Penelope follow me to the suite? Nate checked his phone, and after a quick thanks to Hannah and a nod at me, he was out the door. I turned back to Hannah. Are you sure there isn't something I can use to clean this up? This is nothing compared to what the stadium will look like after the game. She threw a glance at Penelope's takeout container with smears of ice cream. Penelope, are you still hungry? Penelope smiled innocently before saying, hopefully, for glacier berry ice cream? Hannah rolled her eyes. I was thinking glacier nachos. Penelope pumped a fist and did a little dance before snatching up her stuff. She was too busy drawing to eat much lasagna at Charlie's before we left. I think that's a yes, I said to Hannah. Good thing. I don't think Nate wants a kid with a stomachache on top of everything else. Well, those nachos must be epic. Penelope nodded excitedly. They're the best. The chips look like little mountains, and they have the best gooey cheese. Hannah shrugged. There's a reason we sold out of them opening night. Turned out we didn't need to take the elevator or stairs to go to the suite. We just had to walk to a different side of the arena. As we followed the rounded edge, I wondered to myself if it was considered a corner. I made a mental note to look it up online later. Hannah guided Penelope and me into a private suite that had a security guard standing outside of it. A large TV took up the right wall behind a bar topped with white marble. Staff members were busy putting out food as we walked by. A black leather couch took up the left wall so anyone could comfortably watch the TV if they didn't want to look down at the ice. Not that the seats facing the ice were the hard plastic stadium seats that lined the rest of the arena. No. The only thing they had in common was that the bottom half of the seat could be folded down. Otherwise, these seats were covered in thick padding and leather that matched the couch. The team's logo was also embossed into the back of the seat. The jumbotron that hung above the center of the rink was right in front of us and had a disclaimer about pucks going over the plexiglass. Does that happen often? I asked Hannah as I pointed to the sign. She shrugged. Sometimes, but we have medics on standby if they're needed. Well, that's not alarming at all, I thought to myself. Help yourself to anything in here. It's the team's suite, so we keep it stocked with the regular favorites. I've put in an order for nachos, but it'll be a little bit before it gets up here. You have to try the hot chocolate on a stick, Penelope told me. It's the best drink here. It really is, Hannah agreed as she pointed to the end of the bar with lots of alcohol-free drink options. Tea, coffee, milk, juice. There was even a freestyle drink machine that let us pick our flavor combinations. The coffee, hot water, and hot milk kettles are right here, so be careful when you pour. Penelope dumped her stuff by a chair closest to the glass before going to the far end of the bar where a silver tray was filled with individually wrapped packages. I had to walk closer to see that each package included a chocolate block with a stir stick poking out of the center. They were all labeled, and the suite had supplied every hot chocolate flavor I'd ever thought of, and then some. Peppermint, salted toffee, dark chocolate, hazelnut, orange, and so on. There were too many to choose from. Penelope picked up the one with a red and white candy cane instead of a stir stick and took it out of the packaging before placing it in a mug full of hot milk. I smiled at Hannah as she put the kettle down. For all her comments about upset stomachs, she clearly had a soft spot for Nate's daughter. Nate had to trust her as well, considering he'd left Penelope and me with her while he went to go play on the ice. As Penelope stirred, the chocolate melted and mixed into the milk. When she was satisfied with stirring, Penelope picked up a can of extra creamy whipped topping and sprayed it on top. Hannah took it from her. Okay, that's enough until you can talk your dad into more. Penelope didn't even pout as she took her cup and walked back to the chair she'd claimed so she could drink it in comfort. Shaking her head in amusement, Hannah looked at me. Think those knots in your stomach have settled enough to let you eat?" "How did you know?" I asked. She started making herself a cup of tea. "It's not easy being in the spotlight." "I don't know why anyone would like being in it. The last 2 days have been crazy. First, I was fired." "From the bakery?" she asked in alarm. "No, the salon." I justified not talking to Maria yesterday by telling myself that she needed sleep since she got up so early. "Well, Maria better not. I'd hate to stop going there after just finding it." I smiled and started to make a hot chocolate for myself. After selecting the salted toffee option, I asked Hannah, "Did the double chocolate muffin fix your morning yesterday?" "No, but it did make an impression. I've officially been tasked with bringing food to the game day meetings." She tilted her head towards the couch. "Let's sit." "Is the suite just for the three of us?" I asked as I looked up at the trays of food that had been put out and took a spot on the couch. Hannah sat next to me with her tea. "Depends on how many tickets the team has given out. We have a section of tickets closer to the ice as some people prefer to be closer for the game. Kids usually like the suite because of all the food and drink options. Plus, the suite doesn't serve alcohol if anyone under 21 is in the suite." I took in the bar again and for the first time noticed the lack of wine or beer glasses. A bottle of sparkling cider was set in a bucket of ice to chill, but that was it. Not sure what to say, I took a drink of my hot chocolate. My eyes widened in surprise. Rich, velvety chocolate floated over my tongue. Layers of sweetness from the chocolate and toffee complementing each other, followed by a surprise pop of salt. "Oh, Maria needs to try this." Hannah smiled. "I can get you the chocolatier's name and number. She also makes truffles. I can see why the team put you in charge of food." She let out a peal of musical laughter. "I can't help it. I appreciate good food." Something we have in common. "Did you at least get to try Charlie's fries?" she asked. I shook my head sadly. "Not even a bread basket." "And Nate only brought the sundaes with you?" "There was so much going on. I'm surprised he was able to get that." She tissed, then sat her tea down in the cup holder on the couch armrest next to her. I watched curiously as she picked up a plate, and as she walked along the bar food options, she loaded it up with different finger foods. The plate she handed me when she returned was filled with a smaller plate of nachos, a few chicken strips, and a pile of fries. "I'll take you to Charlie's another day, but this'll do for now." I thanked her, and after the first bite of nachos, hunger kicked in with a ferocity I didn't expect. Penelope had been right to be excited about the nachos. They were topped with deliciously seasoned beef, cheese, beans, jalapenos, guacamole, sour cream, salsa, and green onions. I dug into my food, and Hannah was kind enough to not say anything as she picked up her phone and started typing away on it again. Hannah looked at me apologetically. "Sorry, I need to finish the statement for Nate before I talk more." "Don't let me get in the way." I continued eating my nachos and thought of Penelope. She hadn't had a lot of food either. Today had been bad for me, but Penelope had been there too. I set my plate to the side before I got up and picked up a nacho plate to take to her. When I got closer to her, I held out the plate. "Hungry?" "Yes." Penelope took the plate. "Thanks." "How are you doing with everything from yesterday and today?" I asked her. She shrugged and picked up another chip. I returned to the couch and picked up my plate and cup of hot chocolate. Hannah was still working on her phone, so I took both back with me and sat by Penelope. I could respect not wanting to tell a stranger about everything. "Do you get to see a lot of your dad's games?" "When it's my turn with him, Mom doesn't like hockey." That surprised me. "She says it's too violent for me to watch." "Does your dad get in a lot of fights?" She shrugged. "Sometimes, but normally he's trying to stop the team goons." "Goons?" She looked at me as if I was from an alien planet. "Do you know anything about hockey?" I winced. "Will you hate me if I say no?" Penelope took my answer as a personal challenge, and started to point at the ice and tell me all there was to know about hockey and the team her dad was the star center on. I may not know a lot about hockey, but it was clear to me from everything I'd seen the last 2 days that Penelope loved her dad, and he loved her just as fiercely. She talked me through the pre-game rituals, and we stood when the national anthem played. Player 23 skated to the center of the ice in a blue jersey to face a black and red jersey from the other team. Penelope lit up. Dad's the best at face-offs. Face-off? She didn't stop looking at where her dad was getting ready on the ice. The ref is going to drop the puck and Dad's going to try getting it for his team. The Jumbotron showed that the camera was zoomed in on Nate bent forward on the ice, ready to go. I could see the determination on his face, and then the puck dropped. Chapter 10. Nate. The good thing about a game night? Nobody asked me about the press or Leah or anything as we each went through warm-ups. The trainers had been particular about making sure I was prepped as best I could be. My ankle felt pretty good for how much ice time I'd had in yesterday's game. In the locker room, we each went through our routines. Lou had his big headphones on, blasting his music. Daniel was looking at the photo of his wife he'd taped to his locker. "The smell of your socks is going to kill us all." Lou had his nose pinched as he looked at Matt in the locker next to him. "Please wash them." "I wash them, we lose." I shook my head. Superstitious or not, I'd learned long ago not to mess with anyone's routine. Practice days were one thing, but game days? I wasn't going to do anything to put anyone else on edge. Game days had an energy that grew stronger the closer to the puck drop we got. We'd be taking the ice in an hour. My phone buzzed. I'd thought I'd put it on silent. It was a text from Erin. "You've given me no choice. Penelope and I are moving to New York as soon as I sell the house." Dread and anger hit me with equal measure. She'd threatened to move 1,000 times. Usually it was accompanied with a request for money. I typed a text back to her. "How much?" Her response was quick. "It's not about the money. Keeping Penelope in this small town is keeping her from important opportunities." I frowned and thought to myself, in other words, the opportunities Erin thought she would benefit from. What opportunities? My phone said Erin had read my text, but none of the dots showed up to show she was typing. After a few minutes, I knew Erin was done talking. She'd let me stew on it, so I'd write her a check for whatever amount she wanted. We'd played this game way too many times, and I was done with it. Instead of arguing with Erin, I typed out a text to my lawyer asking for him to do whatever it took to keep Erin from moving away with Penelope. My lawyer, Jared, must have been working late because he responded right away. "Full custody?" "Yes." I put my phone on silent before setting it in my locker and grabbing my gear. With a roll of my shoulders, I pushed all the drama out of my mind. Right then, all I needed to think about was the puck and the team. I fell into my pre-game gear-up routine. Coach Hart walked over to me as I lifted my jersey over my head. "You good?" he asked. I finished pulling my jersey on. "I'm good." He nodded and got the team's attention. After talking through the starting lineup and a reminder of the tactics he wanted to see, he gave the same pep talk he'd delivered last night. We were good, but only as good as we played together. The Frostbite Falcons we were about to play had won last night. They wanted to do it again tonight. Coach told us to focus on the puck, not the punches, and we left the locker room for the ice. We warmed up, and I held up a glove to fist-pump Dan in our typical pregame fashion. After the quick skate around the ice, we were pulled off the ice for the national anthem to play. As it finished, I looked up to the box to see Penelope standing at the glass, Leah next to her. Penelope pointed at something, and Leah nodded. I looked away, head in the game, not on the beautiful redhead treating my daughter with respect. "Mitchell!" My head snapped to Coach. "Face off!" "Yes, Coach." Face-offs were one of my favorite parts of the game. There's nothing quite like challenging myself against the speed of the player across from me and seeing who can get the puck first. I dropped my smile as I skated to the center of the ice, stopping just outside the circle where the ref will drop the puck. A quick look around showed that my teammates were in position. A nod from Daniel on the net told me we were all good. I turned my focus forward, and immediate distaste coated my tongue as I recognized the player in the red jersey across the circle from me. Evan Mercer had been a pain in my backside since my first AHL season. He took it personally when the NHL called me up over him. Last I'd heard, he'd been with the Blizzard Bisons. I hadn't seen him at last night's game. Mitchell, he nearly spat the words out as he leaned low. Mercer. I leaned forward nice and low to get in position and waited for the puck to drop. The ref looked between us and held up the black puck. Clean game, boys. Coach wanted a clean game, too, but when it comes to hockey, clean is relative. I won't play dirty, but I will return whatever I get, and I have no doubt that my team will be there for me, too. The ref dropped the puck, and my stick was there to get it, and Mercer was just a little too slow. I slapped the puck to my wingman, and Mercer shoved me away. I shrugged him off and followed the puck as Lou skated it down the ice. The Falcons played hard, and I hit the boards more than once, but so did the other team. Back and forth we went across the ice, neither team scoring in the first or second period. The third period started, and just like the first two, I got the puck in the face-off against Mercer. Switching it up, I hit the puck to Matt. He was young and fast and was off to the other side of the rink while the rest of us played catch-up. The Falcon defenseman collided with him, and they ended up fighting over the puck by the boards. They scrapped, and just as I got in position for Matt to sling the puck my way, he dropped his stick and launched himself into the other player. The ref's whistle blew, and I helped the refs pull Matt away from the fight. Matt was angrier than I've ever seen him. In the pause as we waited for the refs to tell us how long he'd be stuck in the box, I stood by him. "What was that about?" I asked. Matt wasn't a goon and had the lowest PIM on the team. He shook his head and skated to the penalty box without a word. The Falcons had a power play for 5 minutes, leaving my team down a player until Matt got out of the box. We skated hard, but Mercer ended up scoring, something he gloated about as we went again in the face-off. Mercer had figured out that he couldn't grab the puck first, and he went for blocking my stick instead. My hockey stick scraped across the ice and hit Mercer's stick hard. He twisted and quickly ran a skate on my stick, causing it to break. With a grin, Mercer gained control of the puck and he slapped it away to his teammate. And then, while the refs were looking away, his stick hooked my skate and pulled. I hit the ice, and if I hadn't had a helmet on my head, would have been ringing. Mercer had already skated away and acted like nothing happened. Whistles blew, and the game was paused as the refs conferred. I got up and headed to my team's bench for a new stick while the refs divvied out Mercer's penalty. Coach opened the door and the boards as I skated closer. "Get checked out," he ordered, and I saw Daniel's wife, one of the team trainers and sports medicine experts, was already by the bench waiting for me. I plopped down and watched Coach send someone else out to take my place on the ice for the new face-off. By the time Alexis cleared me, Mercer was sitting in the penalty box, and the clock on Matt's penalty had run out. The tables had turned, and my team now had the power play. The crowd roared in approval, and I could feel the shift in the air from all the energy. Matt was also benched to make sure he was over whatever had set him off. He sat next to me and took a drink from his water bottle before asking, "You good?" "Yeah." I looked up at the window where Penelope was standing by the glass next to Leah and Hannah. I waved at them so they'd know that I was fine. "Want to talk about it?" "Nope." "If you do, not gonna happen." But I caught the way he looked up at the suite as well. He looked away as soon as he noticed that I saw. I lifted an eyebrow in question. He looked around real fast. "Not now." We turned back to the game and watched as Lou took the puck and scored. We were tied up and still had a full minute left on the power play. The fans were going crazy, and the announcer was hyping them up. Lights flashed around the stadium to celebrate the goal. Matt and I leaned over the boards to stick out a gloved hand so we could high-five Lou as he skated by. Matt and I stayed standing as we watched the rest of the game play out. Mercer was still stuck in the penalty box as we watched Lou take possession of the puck again. He was still riding the high from his goal as he brought it to the goal and slap-shot it right between the goalie's legs. The roar of the crowd was deafening as we led the scoreboard 2-1. There's nothing like a good power play, and it was what had won the game for us. Spirits high, we circled the ice and did all the PR things until it was time to head into the locker room. Back to the real world and all the things that can't be solved on the ice. Just like that, I was thinking about the mess with Erin and how I could make up for this disaster to Leah. I hated that Penelope was so used to Erin's theatrics and that I didn't have full custody. I hoped that my lawyer would have good news for me soon. Hopefully Hannah had finished the statement she wanted me to give. My phone buzzed. I took off my helmet and gloves, setting them to the side so I could check my phone. My lawyer's name flashed on the screen. Why didn't you say you were getting engaged? This is a game changer. There's no way the judge will refuse your request when you're getting married. Let me know where you want the prenup sent, and don't forget to send me an invitation to the wedding. And like the power play that won the game, I saw what I needed to be able to protect Penelope and win against Erin. I needed an extra player. I dialed Hannah on my phone. I need to talk to Leah without Penelope. Sure, I can put her on the phone. Face to face, before the interviews. Hannah sighed. I can give you a couple minutes, but that's it. That's all I need. I didn't bother changing anything besides my skates so I could talk to Leah sooner. Hannah brought her down to just outside the locker room, but there wasn't much privacy to be had. With the rest of the team able to walk by at any moment, Leah smiled when she saw me, but I could tell from the look in her eyes that she was a little confused at why Hannah had brought her down. Hannah looked at her watch. 2 minutes, Mr. Hockey. I need your help. I got right to the point as I looked at Leah. I need you to be my fiancé. Chapter 11. Leah. Of all the ways I dreamed of being proposed to, this wasn't it. And all the romance books Maria made me read, I'd seen proposals galore in every situation imaginable. A hunky hockey player still sweaty from a game, fake proposing, didn't even make the list. My mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water as I blinked at this gloriously handsome man standing in front of me. His hair didn't even have the decency to be hideous after being stuck under a helmet for so long. No, his hair had avoided becoming hideous hat hair. Instead, it looked like he'd professionally finger-combed it into a surfer style worthy of an Instagram influencer. I blurted out, "Do you wake up with good hair?" "If I say yes, does that mean you agree to my proposal?" Nate asked. I shook my head to clear it. Hannah let out a short laugh and walked down the hall far enough to give us a little bit of privacy for this conversation. Her fingers were busy typing on her phone once more. Nate's eyes were hopeful and pleading. "Please, Leah, I'm trying to get full custody of Penelope, and my lawyer says getting married will help." My stomach flipped, and I worried the nachos would make a comeback. "You said fiancé, not marriage. We won't actually get married. Show up to court with me. Tell the judge how awful Erin is to Penelope. After I get custody, we can break up." Penelope had told me a lot about her dad as we watched the game in the suite. She'd told me all about their ritual of making waffles together on Sundays. Nate went overboard and had all the toppings and then some. I'd never heard of putting ice cream on waffles, but then again, it made a sort of sense when thinking about how popular waffle cones were. Clearly, she loved him just as much as he loved her. When I'd asked if Erin and she had any traditions like that, she'd clammed up and put her cup of hot cocoa down. "And Penelope?" I asked. "What will she think about lying to a judge?" He grimaced. "She'll need to think it's real. I'll tell her the truth after it's all over." "You don't even know me. I could be a terrible person," I said, running a hand through my hair. His lips twitched as if he were trying to hide his amusement. "I see how you talk to people at the bakery. I know you risked your job for Penelope. A terrible person wouldn't do that. Only a person as beautiful on the inside as you are on the outside would do that." His words touched a part of me that I hadn't realized was craving acknowledgement. He'd called me beautiful and saw more than my clothes or my hair. My stomach did that flippy thing it did when I saw his smile. I shook it away. It would take a lot more to get me to agree to this outlandish farce. What will Penelope think about losing her mom? I had no love for Erin, but she was still Penelope's mom at the end of the day. His shoulders dropped, and the spark of hope in his blue eyes was slowly dying. I'm not fighting for Erin to never see Penelope again, but I want her to only have supervised visits. You saw how pushy she is, how she puts her wants above Penelope's needs. You've seen how quickly Erin will tear someone down without a second thought. Do you know how hard it is to pick up the pieces and build Penelope up after spending time with her mother, who's supposed to love and support her? My heart broke for him and Penelope. Hannah walked over to us and looked up from her phone apologetically. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I need you in the press room, Nate. Do I need to type up a new statement for you?" He just watched me, and I could tell from the look on his face that he expected me to say no. The spark in his eyes was completely gone now. I looked between Hannah and Nate. "I want to help you and Penelope, Nate, but I don't even know if I'll be able to stay in the city. I lost 2 jobs yesterday." Hope sparked in his eyes, and his shoulders lifted. "That's something I need to make right, and I'll help you find a better paying job, and I'll pay all your bills in the meantime. Even if you say no to my proposal, I'll still make that right." One by one, he'd broken down all my objections. "I'll do it." Hannah grabbed Nate and pulled him down the hall as I followed. "Congratulations! We'll have to keep it simple. Just confirm the relationship for now. We'll release something better later. The press needs to know she's my fiancé, so the courts have evidence." She looked at me. "Leah, I need you to hide your left hand until Nate gets you a ring. If they ask to see it, tell them it's being resized. Sam is on his way with a jersey for you for the photos tonight." "I don't need a ring," I said, trying to keep up with them. "Or a jersey." Nate exchanged a look with Hannah. "I'll take her ring shopping Monday." "Wait, what if I have plans Monday?" I didn't, but I also didn't want him to make all the decisions without my input. I'd been in a relationship like that before, and I wasn't about to do that again. "Do you?" Nate asked. "Tomorrow is my rest day with Penelope, and then the team is flying out Tuesday for games in the Falcons' hometown. Monday, Penelope is in school, so it's the only free day I have until I fly back next Sunday." Feeling a little sheepish, I felt my cheeks heat. "Oh, I just wanted to be asked instead of told. Fake or not, for this to work, we need to be a team." Nate stopped walking. "You're absolutely right. I should have asked." Hannah smiled and she gushed with excitement as she waved her hands around excitedly. "Make it a whole date day. Let the press take photos of you two being cute and coupley. You should take him to La Petite. Speaking of sweets, Penelope may or may not be eating all the sweets in the suite, so I suggest hurrying up with the press before she gets a stomachache." We stood outside the doors to the press room. The moment a light blue jersey, Nate's name and number were on the back, was delivered, she shoved it over my head. The jersey had long sleeves that fell over my hands, and it was long enough it could be worn as a dress. "This is huge," I told them. Hannah shrugged. "I can get you a better fitting jersey for the next game. But this is perfect. It looks like you're wearing one of Nate's jerseys and not one from the gift shop. I'll need to get Sam one of those chocolate muffins to thank him." I had a moment to fuss with my hair, which now wanted to frizz before Nate took my hand and we strode into the room of story vultures. The press room was packed wall to wall. Nate squeezed my hand in reassurance as we walked to the table for him to sit. Hannah guided me off to the side of the room as soon as Nate let go. I could hear the click of camera shutters, and I tried not to fidget as more than one was pointed in my direction. Nate wasn't the only one on the team being asked questions, but it was clear that the reporters just wanted to talk to him. A particularly vocal reporter, a man in a light gray suit, stood in the front row with his microphone out. "Nate, is it true? Are you engaged?" Nate looked at me, giving me a chance to change my mind. I gave him a little nod and a shy smile. He didn't look away from me as he told the room, "I am." The press went crazy, shouting questions over one another. I should probably call my mother to let her know. Chapter 12. Leah. Monday morning, I was sitting inside La Petite Bakery, filling Maria in on the last few days. There was Flower dusting her pale pink t-shirt that said, "Rolling with my domies," and had a picture of a cinnamon roll on it. I always knew what specialty goodie she'd be making based on the shirt she was wearing. Today was no exception, and I was chopping the pecans for the filling and glaze for her ooey gooey cinnamon rolls. "Are you sure you don't want to fire me?" I asked. Her hands were still halfway through the process of rolling out her cinnamon rolls, and she looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "Are you kidding? I need all the help I can get right now." When I'd texted her to see if she wanted an extra pair of hands this morning before my date, she'd happily taken me up on the offer. One of the hockey players had posted a selfie online with one of the muffins from Hannah's order. Orders had started pouring in as a result. "But what if you get nasty comments once people find out I work here?" She left the dough and walked over to wrap me up in a big hug. "You're stuck with me until the day I can't bake anymore." I didn't even mind that she'd covered my shirt in flour, too. Instead of a cinnamon roll shirt, I had on a purple bakery shirt that said, "Keep calm and eat a cupcake." "And you're okay with me moving in?" I'd spent yesterday packing my things and seeing if there was anywhere I could afford to stay. It was a good thing I didn't have much. A couple suitcases and boxes were all I needed to pack up. "I wouldn't have offered if I had a problem with it." She let go of me. "But what if I'm the reason you close?" She'd fought so hard for La Petite, and I'd never forgive myself if I was the reason she had to close. "Then we can move to the middle of nowhere, adopt a bunch of cats, and start over." I laughed. "Why cats, though? What do you have against dogs?" "My neighbor's dog barks all the time. I'll pass." She returned to the dough. "Hey, maybe you could be a dog walker. I'll give my neighbor your info and you can take the dog out so I can get some sleep." The life of a baker definitely wasn't easy. Getting to the bakery by 3 a.m. meant trying to go to sleep early in the evenings. More than once I'd heard her complain about her next-door neighbor stomping and making loud noises that made it hard for her to sleep. I suspected that underneath all the complaining, she was trying to hide another feeling. "When did he get a dog?" I asked. "About a week ago. The thing is constantly making noise, and I'm living on caffeine to stay awake." That explained the batch of cookies she'd forgotten to add sugar to the other day. "I'm sorry. I was so busy complaining about my life." "That's what best friends are for, Leah. We rant and we listen. I listened, and so have you. And here the internet says best friends are for providing an alibi." She smiled mischievously. "Well, If a dog goes missing, I was at your place." "Noted." We laughed and finished making the ooey-gooey rolls. Maria popped a tray into the preheated oven. "What time is Nate meeting you here?" I glanced at my watch. "In an hour. He had to drop Penelope off at school. Did you see the interview Hannah posted from after the game?" "You mean him fielding all the questions about your engagement that's straight out of a romance novel?" "Yeah, but it'll probably end up like a crime novel. You should have seen some of those looks his ex gave me at the salon." I shuddered. She rolled her eyes. "Let me know if you still feel that way after he kisses you." "Who said anything about kissing? There will be no kissing a man I just met." "You didn't just meet him, though. You've been flirting with Superdad for months. The sparks from your banter make it feel like the 4th of July. Of course there will be kissing. You're gorgeous. He's gorgeous. There needs to be smooching of the best kind so you can tell me all about it. Otherwise, that's like cookies without chocolate, cake without frosting, brownies without— You're ridiculous." I cut her off. She could go on for a long time when she started making food comparisons. "Why don't you find someone for your own sparks? Like that neighbor of yours." I wiggled my eyebrows at her and laughed at the glare she shot me. "My neighbor may be hot, but he's the most inconsiderate, insufferable man. You couldn't pay me to kiss him, and I haven't been on a date since that last guy I swiped on. He told me I tasted like garlic. We just had Italian with garlic bread. What could he have expected? You're better off without him." She nodded her head emphatically. "You know I am, and I knew it too when he told me that I'd be more attractive if I cut out carbs. Who ever heard of a baker that didn't eat carbs? So I better be the first person you tell about your kisses with Nate." I lifted and dropped one shoulder in a semi-shrug. "How about I see how breakfast goes with him first? Go pick out your box. I'd hate for it to sell out before you get a chance." "Don't lie, you'd love to sell out. But I want first dibs on those cinnamon rolls." She shooed me to the front of the store so I could put together a to-go box for Nate and I. I hadn't thought to ask him if he preferred to eat at the bakery or somewhere else. The upside of having helped Nate when he came into the bakery is I knew what to pick out for the both of us. I added a couple of bacon and egg croissants he liked so much before adding 2 of my favorite chocolate muffins to a mini box. Movement out of the corner of my eye caught my attention, and I saw a line of customers already lined up outside the door. A really long line. "Maria?" I called out nervously. When she came to the front, I pointed to the long line of people. "How much more can you bake?" "More if I didn't have to man the counter." I pulled my phone from my pocket and pulled up the text messages between Nate and I. We'd sent a lot of messages back and forth over the weekend. "I'll text Nate. He'll understand the need to reschedule." I couldn't leave Maria without help to face this crowd. "No, you don't need to cancel your date." The moment I finished typing that I needed to help Maria, I hit send. "Too late. Now get baking." 1 hour, Leah. Tops." She went back to the kitchen to start mixing up yummy things. "You can still go on your date." We were swamped as soon as the door opened, and I rushed to fill boxes and bags as I rang up orders. People were getting hangry from waiting so long in line, and I thought we were one muffin shortage away from a riot. We'd already run out of the blueberry and banana nut muffins. I didn't even know how much time had passed when the energy of the crowd shifted from annoyance to an excited buzz. People parted as Nate and 2 of his teammates strode through the door. They were wearing their blue jerseys and jeans, and Nate had his incognito hat on. His gaze found mine, and a warm smile slowly formed on his face. A gentle flutter stirred in my stomach as a sense of warmth enveloped me. People were asking for autographs and selfies, and his teammates obliged them as Nate confidently walked up to the counter. The customer I was ringing up stepped to the side to give him more room. He leaned in close to me, and he smelt like a combination of amber and something woodsy. His lips barely brushed my forehead before he said, "Hi." My insides turned into a pile of jelly, and I had to hold onto the counter so I didn't fall to my knees. "Did you get my text?" He nodded and pointed to his teammates. "That's why I brought reinforcements." Maria chose this moment to bring out a tray of freshly iced cinnamon rolls. She stopped mid-step, and her jaw dropped at the sight of Nate. She was seconds away from a full fangirl moment when she shook herself. Focused on filling up the display with the cinnamon rolls, she worked fast as she swapped the empty tray for the full one. Nate smiled at her. "Mind if I help? I can box orders while Leah rings them up." "What about your date?" Maria asked and glanced at me. He offered her one of his adorable shrugs. "I don't mind waiting for the morning rush to die down." "Wash your hands, then Leah, give him your apron." Then she walked into the back to bake something else. Nate washed at the sink I directed him to before returning. I untied the apron from around my waist, and he lifted the loop up from my neck. The barest touch of his fingers sent goosebumps across my skin. "This is really kind of you," I told him. He shrugged and looped the apron over his head and turned so I could tie it for him. A throat cleared, and I looked over to see one of his teammates grinning at the two of us like a cat that got the cream. Nate shook his head and offered introductions. His teammate who was grinning at us was Lou, and the other one was Dan. Lou was the apparent genius who made the post online and caused the long line of customers. "Think I can get one of those gooey things?" Lou asked. "I'll put one to the side for each of you," I offered. Lou grinned and slapped Dan on the back and pulled a backpack from off his shoulders. Dan rolled his eyes. "Coach is going to make us do so many laps." Once the treats were put to the side, we got to work. Nate helped to box whatever people pointed to and offered suggestions of things he'd tried when they were not sure what to get. Lou and Dan helped entertain the crowd, and the line moved much more smoothly. By the time the last customer left with the last of the cinnamon rolls, I was exhausted. I flicked the sign from open to closed. Lou and Dan had taken a seat at one of the tables, their imposing size making it look like a kid's table. Nate pulled off the apron, and I took it from him to hang up. "I have a box of things for us if you're hungry." He followed me eagerly to the back. Maria was holding her experiment plate, piled with a variety of goodies she wanted to tweak the next time she made it. "Want one?" she asked us. "I'm thinking about making these for book club." I shook my head. "I got plenty for us earlier, but Lou or Dan might." "The goalie?" Maria asked, perking up like a kid about to meet Santa. Nate only had to nod, and she was through the door to the front with the plate. I shared a chuckle with Nate and put my apron up on the hook. I turned around to find Nate was much closer than I'd thought, and the kitchen was still too hot from all the baking. I stepped around him, and I wasn't so sure the warmth I was feeling had anything to do with the ovens. I picked up the box I'd packed earlier from off the counter and held it out to him. "Do you want to eat here, or we can find a spot somewhere?" I let the question trail off since he was not taking the box. He checked the time on his watch. "Here would be good. Our appointment at Radiant Diamonds is soon." "I really don't need a ring," I protested once more. "You really do." He took the box from me and held open the door for me back to the front. "Well, don't worry about paying for a real stone. I'm good with a fake one," I told him as I walked by. "We'll see." We walked into a glare-off between Lou and Maria. Dan was happily eating an eclair. Lou picked up one of the blueberry muffins, but Maria smacked his hand and he dropped it back onto the plate. Dan picked it up and started eating the muffin. "Oh, come on!" Lou slumped in the chair. "I only got one." "Everything okay?" I asked. Maria pushed the plate to Dan, then turned around and stomped over to me. She looked at Nate. "You and anyone that's not Lou are welcome here any time. Now get that idiot out of my bakery." She stomped into the back room, and both Nate and I turned to look at Lou. "What did you do?" Nate asked him. "She won't let me have any more." Lou whined and tried to reach for one of the scones on the plate. Dan pulled the plate closer to himself and leaned over it like the goalie he was. "No touchy." Lou stood up and walked to the front door. "Fine, I'm out of here." "What was all that about?" I asked Dan. He shrugged. "All she said was, 'You,' and you saw the rest." Nate and I ate with Dan, but Maria didn't come up to the front again. I wanted to check on her, but I knew she wouldn't want to talk about it while Nate and Dan were here. I'd have to try and get it out of her later. For now, I listened to Nate and Dan praise Maria's skills and debate over the best thing. "Alexis is going to be so mad she didn't come with me," Dan said as he looked at the empty plate. I lifted up the chocolate muffin I was saving for later and handed it to him. "Give her this one." He smiled at me like I was an angel and took it. "I'll bring her next time I come in." Maria poked her head out, and when she saw that Lou was nowhere to be seen, she came out to clean up the tables and counter. She shooed us all out and locked the door behind us. She insisted that Nate and I should enjoy our date and that Dan was welcome to bring Alexis by any time. Chapter 13. Leah. Radiant Diamonds was nothing like the jewelry stores I'd been to before. Sure, it had the white floors and walls with the bright lights that made everything in the glass cases sparkle. But that's where similarities to other stores ended. No, as soon as Nate and I walked in, they took us back to a private room and offered us sparkling water as we sat on soft leather chairs. The associate, a man in a nice black suit, asked us a few questions about what we were looking for, then left us to enjoy our drinks while he went to pull inventory. I now stared at a collection of the prettiest rings I'd ever seen in my life. Each one was gorgeous in its own right, but the one on the far left caught my eye. A beautiful oval-cut solitaire that was set into the center, and the rose gold band itself was crafted to look like vines, while smaller diamonds dotted the vines like flowers among the leaves. A beautiful balance of tradition and fairy tale. "We can swap the diamond for any stone," the salesman offered as he pulled out the ring I'd been looking at. He handed it to Nate to look at. "The wedding band also comes in the same woodland style." Nate lifted my hand, his hold steady and warm as he slid the ring on my finger. It fit so perfectly and made me feel like a fairy tale princess. An overwhelming mixture of wonder and wrongness hit me. Wonder at this ring that was more perfect than anything I'd ever imagined for myself, and wrongness as I thought of the last time I'd gone ring shopping. I'd been so excited that I pulled on my boyfriend's hand as we walked by the jewelry store in the mall. Reluctantly, he'd followed me in, and he'd frowned at each of the rings I pointed out, complaining about the cost of each one and how commercialism was killing romance. Comment by comment, my bubble of happiness had burst. All the warm, fuzzy feelings I'd been feeling around Nate vanished, and I shivered. This was not a fairy tale, and it wasn't going to end with a happily ever after. Those didn't exist. It's beautiful, but no. I slid the ring off and handed it back to the salesman. "How about that one?" I pointed to the simplest of the rings we'd been shown, with the smallest stone. A classic pear-shaped solitaire on a plain gold band. The diamond was still bigger than anything I'd looked at with my ex. The man handed it to me to try on. The fit wasn't the same. It felt a little looser, and it didn't ignite the same level of rightness the other one had. But it was an engagement ring, and that's all we needed. "Can you give us a moment?" Nate asked the associate. The associate excused himself, mumbling something about getting us a refill even though our glasses were still mostly full. As the door closed, Nate leaned towards me, his eyes filled with a concerned intensity. I put the ring down as I looked away from him. I'll wear whatever ring you pick. We both know this is temporary, so there's no point in picking anything more expensive than the basic one. Leah, I want you to be happy. His gentle tone had me looking at him, and I saw the unwavering sincerity in his eyes as he lifted a hand to gently cup my cheek. Please pick the ring you like wearing so you can enjoy it for however long you wear it. I'll be happy with whatever you pick, Nate, I said softly. You don't have to spend your hard-earned money on me. Our eyes locked in a silent exchange. The air was thick with unspoken words. My heart beat faster as Nate leaned in slightly, his lips hovering close to mine. For a fleeting moment, I imagined what it would be like if we kissed. I could feel the electric spark between us, sending shivers down my spine, just from his fingers cradling my face. But just as quickly as the moment arose, it shattered. The return of the associate broke the spell, and Nate pulled away. I hastily tried to compose myself. I couldn't help but wonder if Nate felt the same magnetic pull I did, or if it was merely a figment of my imagination. I glanced at him out of the corner of my eye. A faint smile played on his lips. We were both quiet, and I sipped my drink just to have something to do. The associate cleared his throat. Have you reached a decision, or should I get another round of rings? We'll take the woodland one. I gasped. Nate! He handed over a black card without hesitation. He didn't even ask how much the ring would cost. Excellent choice, Mr. Mitchell. Do you want me to package it, or do you want to wear it out? As Nate's warm touch guided the ring into place, I couldn't help but feel a flutter of excitement mingled with apprehension. His touch ignited a spark of connection that I'd been trying to suppress. The sincerity in his gesture confirmed his earlier words. Despite my earlier protests, I loved the ring. Even if the weight of it felt both foreign and strangely comforting against my skin, leaving me feeling both touched and overwhelmed at the possibility that even in the midst of faking our relationship, there was a glimmer of something more. The associate processed the payment right in front of us and printed out the receipt. I just stared at the ring on my hand. I was so shocked I missed everything else Nate and the man said as they finished up the paperwork. We walked out of the store into the bright afternoon sunshine. My hand felt heavy now as I lifted it to shade my eyes. Nate threaded his fingers with mine and brought my hand to his lips. He placed a kiss so light on the back of my hand, I would have thought I imagined it if I didn't feel the undeniable warmth from his tenderness that it left behind. He smiled and lowered our connected hands down to swing as we walked side by side. Where do you want to go next? I asked him. His shoulders were relaxed as he pointed across the street. How about there? If I didn't know any better, I'd think the man had a list of my favorite things. The store wasn't any regular bookshop. No, the book garden was the perfect combination of cozy and modern. Maria made the scones for their reading spot, and once a month we met for book club after hours with the owner, Sophie. Entering through the sturdy double doors, I felt at home immediately. What do you like to read? I asked him. He took me to the aisle full of epic fantasy novels and pointed at the Lord of the Rings series. What about you? Maria mentioned a book club. We read only the cheesiest romances possible for book club. Show me. I did just that, pointing out the ones I'd read. He picked up one of them, and I took the opportunity to browse the store. I couldn't afford to buy today, but that didn't mean I couldn't look for the next book club read. So absorbed in browsing, I didn't pay attention to how much time had passed. And it wasn't until my stomach growled that I realized Nate had wandered away at some point to get a basket. He'd filled it with books, too. "Hungry?" he asked me. "Heard that?" I placed the book I'd been looking at back on the shelf. Nate picked it up and put it in his basket. I lifted a brow in question. "Picking up romances now?" "It sounds interesting." We went to the checkout and I spotted Sophie working behind the counter. "Leah!" She beamed at me. "It's so good to see you." We chatted about how she'd spent the Christmas and New Year holidays traveling Europe with her husband. They'd visited castles, and she'd picked up a recipe she wanted Maria to try making for her bookstore. All the while, she rang up the books for Nate, and halfway through I realized that every book she scanned was one I'd picked up as we browsed. Nate just smiled and picked up both bags of books. Looping his free hand with mine, he waited for me to finish talking with Sophie. Sophie caught sight of the ring. "When did that happen? I thought you'd sworn off men." She looked at me, then Nate. "Even if they do have excellent taste in books." "Tell you at book club?" She groaned. "That's 3 weeks away, but fine. I have to get home anyway." A few reporters with cameras waited outside the store as Nate held the door for me. I did my best to follow Nate's lead and ignore them as we loaded the books into his truck and drove away. We'd accomplished what we needed to. I had a ring and photos had been taken. "Did you talk to Penelope about us?" I asked him. He'd spent all of Sunday with her. His hand slid over the steering wheel as he turned at the light. I did. "How'd it go?" "Turns out talking to her is more nerve-wracking than a face-off in front of an arena full of people." He smiled. "But she gave me permission to date you." "What did you tell her about everything?" "That we met at the bakery and have been talking for a while, but we wanted to take it slow." "And the engagement?" "I told her that when people assumed we were, that I realized it felt right, and when I asked you, you said yes." "So not exactly a lie." "And what about you? Have you told your friends and family the news?" Discomfort had me fidgeting with my hands. "My mom and I had a long conversation yesterday. She's disappointed you didn't ask for my dad's permission first, but she would have settled for meeting you first." "I'd love to meet them." "You don't have to do that. They'd pull out the baby binder and tell you of all the ways I don't measure up to my cousin Haley." He gave me a quick stare of disbelief as we stopped at a red light. "Well, that sounds downright backward. I don't think anyone could measure up to you." I dropped the subject of my family as he drove, instead asking him, "Have you gotten a date from your lawyer?" "February 3rd. 4 weeks of being a fiancé. I could do that." "That's just under a month away." "Tired of me already?" He teased and took a left before pulling up in front of my building to park. He had me wait so he could open my door for me, and then he grabbed the bags of books to carry up the stairs to my apartment. I wondered what he'd think of the place. My home wasn't anything fancy, and the kitchen and living room spaces were one and the same. A convenience for those nights when I wanted to watch movies on my laptop while I ate dinner on the lumpy couch I'd picked up for cheap on an upcycling site. "Where do you want the books?" Nate asked me. "You can set them on the coffee table. Can I get you a drink?" I remembered it the moment I saw Nate pause in setting the books down. I'd forgotten about the yellow notice Benny had taped to my door and that I'd left it on the coffee table. The same coffee table Nate had just set the books down on. He picked up the paper and then looked at me. "Is this because of Erin?" Yes and no. I was figuring it out when my landlord saw that I was fired and decided to go through with it. His shoulders slumped under an invisible weight. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "It's embarrassing. I'm supposed to be a self-sufficient woman by now, but instead I have student loans for a degree I never finished or wanted, and I can't earn enough from one job to pay for a good place to live." Where does your landlord live? I promised you I'd take care of things until you got back on your feet. I'll be okay, Nate. I'm moving in with Maria. I sat on my couch and he joined me. The couch felt much smaller with him next to me, and it wouldn't take much for my leg to brush up against his. It was then that I realized I was still covered in flour and wearing the bakery shirt. I'd completely forgotten about the change of clothes I'd left at the bakery. I'll help you move. I'm good at moving things. He had a serious glint in his eye. Like Pucks and other players, I teased, patting his hand playfully. I have it under control, but thank you for the offer. He captured my hand before I could pull it away and brush his thumb across it. Butterflies fluttered in my stomach at the tiny gesture. You know all these things about me, but I don't know enough about you. I should probably know about my fiancé. What do you want to know? My heart fluttered unexpectedly at his words. With my free hand, I tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear to try and hide the twinge of vulnerability I was feeling all of a sudden. Ocean or mountain? His question caught me off guard. I mentally started preparing for questions about why I was still single or something. Ocean. You? Mountain. But you live in Glacier Bay. There's an ocean right there. I shifted on the couch to face Nate directly, my elbow resting on the back of it as I leaned in. I could feel that spark building between us once more, or maybe it had never really disappeared. There was a charming grin on Nate's face as he told me, and there are mountains just a short drive away. It's the best of both. His eyes locked on mine, sparking a warmth that melted away my unease. Is that why you moved here? To have both? He took a deep breath before answering. No, I moved here because I thought in a smaller city I could fix my marriage to Erin. Then I stayed because Glacier Bay needed players. How does it work between Erin and you? She makes demands and I give in because it's the only way I get any time with Penelope. But she's been talking about moving away and taking Penelope with her. So you need me. I leaned back, grateful for the reminder. Nate didn't want me romantically. He just needed a stand-in, and he could have asked anyone. It was good he reminded me because for a moment there, it had started to feel real. I know we're doing this dating thing backward by starting with a proposal, but I have to say I'm not upset by being able to talk to you and see you. I managed a small smile. You're not so bad yourself. Chapter 14. Nate. I didn't know at first what was bothering me, but the feeling wouldn't go away. Practice was perfect for burning through the physical energy, but my mind still felt unsettled. Even as I went through drills and plays, a nagging sense of unease lingered in the background, refusing to be ignored. Penelope called and texted me every day to tell me how she was doing. Erin wasn't making any unreasonable demands. She'd even asked me how I felt about Penelope taking classes to help her with her art. It was surprisingly unselfish for her, and I could only guess that her sudden generosity was at her lawyer's behest. My lawyer had assured me everything was underway. The season was going in our favor, and even the press had backed down as they switched their focus to a scandal involving a rock star's drunken wedding in Vegas. But for the last 3 weeks, something had been scratching away at my subconscious. I hoped I'd be able to figure it out soon. I was starting to go crazy. Perhaps a harmless practical joke was exactly what I needed to shake off the weight of my subconscious worries. I owed Dan one for taping my gear together. After looking around the locker room, I headed to Dan's cubby and pulled out a little toy spider from my pocket. I taped it to his water bottle before strategically placing it back on the shelf. If he grabbed it like he normally did, when he went to take a drink, the spider would be right by his nose. I returned to my locker and sat on the bench to start pulling off my skates. Lou stomped into the locker room and sat down hard in front of his locker. He started to unlace his skates as he asked me, "Think Leah could score me some of those cinnamon rolls?" "She only makes those once in a while. I've only seen them at the bakery twice." "Maria's still refusing to sell to you?" "Yes. It's been 3 weeks, and I even offered to pay her triple the money." My eyebrows rose in surprise. The entire team had been to the bakery multiple times, and it was quickly becoming a fan favorite. Maria had even started renaming some of her goodies after the team. Glacier Bay Bear Claws and Penalty Box croissants were my particular favorites. "What did you do?" I asked him. He held up his hands in an "I don't know" gesture as Matt came into the locker room and sat on the bench. "Did you upset Hannah again?" Matt asked. Lou leveled a glare at him. "My sister is none of your business." Matt shook his head. "Just asking. She was cursing your name earlier." "What were you doing with my sister?" Lou asked. "She's been bringing those right-wing raspberry muffins into the break room every morning." "What?" Lou asked in outrage. "My own sister is siding with the enemy." Matt got a big smile on his face as he asked, "Are you more upset that Hannah is friends with Maria or that Maria named a muffin after me?" Lou stormed out of the locker room, and I couldn't stop my laugh. He hadn't bothered to finish changing or putting on shoes before leaving to give his sister a piece of his mind. For as long as I'd known Lou, Hannah had been the only one who knew what buttons of his to push. Now it seemed a certain baker had managed to get under his skin. "It's good to see you laughing, man," Matt said as he started pulling off his gear. "What do you mean? I laugh?" He shrugged. "Sure, but you've been different after getting engaged." Leah had come to another game and sat with Penelope, Hannah, and Maria in the suite. Much to my surprise, Erin hadn't put up a fight in letting Penelope stay with me for a second weekend. Then they'd all come to the karaoke gathering with the team to celebrate the win. Like moths to a flame, the guys had been drawn to Leah. I'd felt a strong sense of satisfaction each time her ring caught the light and announced that she wasn't available. The guys had treated her like a long-lost sister and gone out of their way to make her feel welcome. But all of that had been swamped by how amazing it was to see Penelope and her together. The pair of them were thick as thieves as they talked about Penelope's classes or different color combinations. Who knew that coloring hair had so much in common with art? Plus, she'd done a popular braid with Penelope's hair that Penelope had seen going viral online. "See, there you go, smiling. Leah's good for you." "She really is," I admitted. We'd managed 2 more dates since I'd gotten her ring. The first was a cliched night at the movies where we'd watched an action movie and shared a bucket of extra buttery popcorn. Our second date, though, I'd been blown away to see her all dressed up for a nice dinner at a high-end restaurant that served the best cooked crab legs. Leah had seemed to enjoy her herb-crusted chicken breast with lemon before I took her back to Maria's. "There's just one thing," Matt said as he wrapped his towel around his neck. "Why haven't you kissed her?" Like being hit by a puck, I realized what had been bothering me. On our dates, Leah had smiled and been pleasant, but any time there was a moment like the one at Radiant Diamonds, she disappeared, literally and figuratively. On our last date, I'd walked her up to the door of Maria's 2-bedroom apartment, but before I could say more than how great the night had been, Leah smiled, yawned, and slipped inside. She'd been pulling away just a little bit at a time. Not enough that anyone looking at us would realize, but I now saw it for what it was. "We're engaged. Of course I've kissed her," I told him, bluffing as confidently as I could. Matt raised an eyebrow, giving me a skeptical look that could rival Coach questioning a penalty call. "If you say so." "We have. It's the best kissing of my life." "Really?" Matt deadpanned. Nodding enthusiastically, I said, "Yep, 100% awesome. Better than scoring a hat trick. Matt couldn't contain a smirk. Because the key to a successful relationship is a good lip lock? Exactly. You gotta aim for the Stanley Cup of smooches. I chuckled, playing along. In that case, maybe I should find someone to get engaged to so I can understand. I chuckled. Better try a kissing booth, Casanova. That's the only way a woman would kiss that ugly mug of yours. Matt shook his head and threw his towel at me. I threw it back at him, and still chuckling, the two of us went about changing. But his comments had me thinking, not just about kissing Leah. I'd wanted to do that for a long time now. As Dan came in from practice, I struggled to contain my excitement, my grin threatening to give away my prank. With a quick wipe of my face using my towel, I tried to appear nonchalant as he approached his locker, oblivious to the impending hilarity. Just as he reached for his water bottle, ready to quench his thirst, he noticed Matt. "Nice slap shot," Dan told Matt. "I thought I wasn't going to stop it in time." "Thanks," Matt said before heading off toward the showers. Finally, Dan lifted the bottle to his lips, only to freeze mid-sip as his eyes landed on the unexpected toy spider I'd left for him. With a startled yelp, he dropped the bottle as if it were scorching hot, sending water splashing everywhere as he recoiled in surprise. The sight of his reaction was so comical that I couldn't help but burst into laughter. I was wheezing as Matt ran back in to see what had happened. "I'm going to get you for this," Dan told me. Yeah. I held out the container of fudge Leah had given me. Her mom had sent it in thanks for helping Leah with the press. The fudge was good, but I wasn't a big fan of the nuts that were mixed in. Not wanting to hurt Leah or her mom's feelings, I shared it with Dan and Matt. If Lou came back, I'd give him some too. By the time I got back to my building, I decided that Leah and I needed to try kissing. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that it just made sense. How would the judge believe our relationship otherwise? I ignored the little thought that my decision to talk to her about kissing had more to do with my desire to kiss her than it did with the custody battle. As I approached my front door, my heart raced with anticipation and nerves. I couldn't shake the feeling that this kiss could change everything between Leah and me, perhaps even more than I was ready to admit. I knew one thing for certain. I had to take this leap of faith, not just for the sake of appearances, but for the chance to explore the growing connection I felt with Leah, a connection that transcended our fake engagement and touched something deeper within me. Erin waited on my doorstep for me. She was dressed in a black power suit tailored to her figure. I knew this because I'd paid her personal shopper bill more than once. She didn't believe in differentiating bills for Penelope versus herself and had tried to pass off anything she could as Penelope's expense. Shiny gold buttons on her jacket matched her gold earrings and rings. A sense of impending doom settled in my gut as I saw her evil grin widen when she saw me. "Nate," she almost crooned my name. "I just had to tell you in person." Should I have my legal counsel present? She waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, it's nothing like that. This is good news." I waited for her to lay it out. I strongly doubted I'd agree with whatever she had to say was good news. The pause stretched out. She wanted me to ask, and I wasn't going to play her game. "I'm tired, Erin." Her red lips pursed into a practiced pout. When we'd first been married, I'd thought it cute. Now I knew it for what it was. One of the many tools she used to manipulate the situation as she attempted to get what she wanted. If pouting didn't work, then she'd work through the rest of her tactics. 3, 2, 1. She dropped the pout. "Fine. I thought you'd want to know that I found a buyer for the house. We close on the 5th. The sense of doom grew. Where is Penelope going to live? The smile that spread across her face was absolutely vicious. That's the best part. I found a penthouse in New York while you took that extra weekend with her. It was so supportive of you to watch her while I found our new place. You can't do this. I moved here because of your work. Now I'm moving to New York for Penelope's. She's 12. She doesn't work. I found a talent agency that's very interested in her. Her classes start after Valentine's Day. You can't be serious. Oh, I'm very serious about her art. I wanted to yell at her, but I caught sight of her phone poking out of her purse. No doubt she was recording and hoping for something to prove I was an unfit parent. I took a deep breath and shoved my fury down. We have a custody hearing on the 3rd. Completely unconcerned, she shrugged. You'll still get your weekends with her. You'll just have to fly to New York or pay for her ticket here. I'm not going to let you do this. It's already done. She laughed as she started to walk away, then paused to look back at me over her shoulder. I'll send you the bill for the movers. Chapter 15. Leah. Book club was a once-a-month excuse to pretend we still had the metabolism of a teenager as we gathered in Sophie's bookstore. She had the comfy armchairs circled around a table full of the treats each of us contributed. Maria's were the first to go, followed by Kim's apple pie. A few of Sophie's friends from Crestfield had decided to join us tonight. They only made it once in a while, but it was always entertaining when they did. They were big fans of Maria's, and we were big fans of the apple-themed treats Kim brought from the orchard that her in-laws owned. We enjoyed both as we fell in love with yet another book boyfriend. Our latest read involved a prince who was in love with the woman he could never have, and his enemies were circling to find any weaknesses they could use against him. But unable to deny his feelings, they began to see each other in secret. Hannah slapped the arm of her chair. You have got it all wrong. He was trying to save her by breaking her heart. If he'd just talked to her, they would have figured out the solution faster, Sophie protested. And she never would have nearly died, Beth added. She only got lost in the forest because she was running and crying. Kim nodded and picked up a slice of cheesecake brownie. A dumb decision, really. How many horror movies do we have to see to know that? Maria rolled her eyes. It's a romance, Kim. Stop bringing your true crime podcasts into it. Only happily ever afters here. Shrugging, Kim looked at her phone. Oh, Zoe sent me a picture. She showed us all a picture of her daughter with a pretty brown and white horse that had bows braided into the mane. Maria groaned. I want your life. Perfect kid, hot cowboy husband, and unlimited access to the best-tasting apples. I could make so many pies and tarts with those. Kim beamed. Knox has some single brothers if you're interested. Too long distance, Maria grumbled. Crestfield was only an hour's drive, but in all the time I'd known her, Maria had refused to get in a vehicle unless absolutely necessary. She preferred to walk everywhere she could and get her groceries delivered. I was pretty sure she didn't even own a car. Speaking of being jealous, Charlotte's voice cut through the air, setting my nerves on edge as all eyes turned towards me. Where did that ring come from? Truthfully, I was surprised they'd waited this long to begin the interrogation. Charlotte had used more finesse than I thought her capable of. Nate gave it to me. Hockey Nate? Gabby asked, her voice full of surprise. He's the nicest guy, but I was under the impression he wasn't seeing anyone. I realized then that she was the woman on the cover of the gossip rag with Nate. And all the times I'd seen her in person, she'd kept her hair in a simple ponytail and tinted gloss. On the magazine, she'd been more dolled up, and I felt like an idiot for not connecting the dots sooner. If I didn't know that Gabby was happily dating someone, I'd feel pretty insecure. Maria perked up, her jealousy of Kim long forgotten. Oh, they've been flirting for months. Every time he came into the bakery, he spent more time talking to Leah than he did picking out what to eat. He did not, I protested. The man gets the same breakfast croissant every time. He only pretends to ogle the display case, so he has an excuse to ogle you. Oh, I love that! But how did that turn into a ring? Charlotte asked. What I say can't leave this room. They leaned forward, anticipating the juiciest piece of gossip. It's a fake engagement. Beth sighed in disappointment. Is that all? Don't listen to her, Kim said. Her eyes glinted with mischief. She knows that sometimes fake relationships turn into something real. Kim, Beth protested. That's old news. Sophie cleared her throat. We're talking about Leah. Kim mimed, zipping her lips shut. Hannah began to fill them in on the drama with the press. Maria had them swooning over the moments at the bakery, and the only thing I offered were details of what happened at the salon. Sophie rattled off books it reminded her of, while Beth swooned over the Superdad shirt and started plotting how she'd make one for her husband. I closed my eyes and tried to relax in my chair. Why aren't you on cloud 9? Kim asked me while the others talked amongst themselves. I'm just bracing for the inevitable. Which is? She asked. I started counting off the things wrong with my life. I'm in mountains of debt, I lost the job at the salon and flower shop, and the best relationship I've ever had is fake. It has to end. She looked like she was considering my words. Okay, starting from the top. Is there any debt forgiveness program you can do? I'm stuck with the student loans until they're paid off or I die. So you need more income. Have you thought about starting your own salon? That's my dream. I looked at Maria lovingly. I like working at the bakery, but I love doing hair and helping people feel pretty. Maria smiled. I know. I've always known the bakery was just a temporary stop for you, but you still better help me decide on new flavors. But I still don't have money, so opening a salon isn't possible, and all the salons have told me no after seeing Erin's video. What about Crestfield? Beth asked. There's a little salon there, but they get a lot of high-end clients. It could make the commute worth it. Crestfield was a strange cross between small town and high society. From the stores they shared, I knew that a portion of the community treated their houses in Crestfield like their own version of the Hamptons. Then there were people like Kim who just ignored the rich class and went about their lives. Kim nodded. They do a lot there, and I was just helping them with the website. Want me to give her your info? I'll take all the help I can get, except Nate's money. The idea of taking the money he offered in exchange for dating him gave me the biggest ick factor. With things busier at the bakery, a refund on a plane ticket I'd canceled, and no rent due, I was able to make the minimums on my bills this month and should have enough for next. Which leaves us with the best relationship you've ever had, Maria said. Are you sure he doesn't want things to be real? That made me snort. Oh, please. We just text and hang out a little for the press. I'll never be good enough to date someone like him for real. The room went silent as they all stared at me, righteous fury in their eyes. Don't talk about yourself that way, Maria said. You are more than enough. So totally enough, Charlotte agreed. If I was enough, I wouldn't have been fired and my ex wouldn't have cheated on me. Maria's eyes narrowed at that tidbit. It was the most I'd ever shared. Their patient gazes bore into me, each one silently urging me to open up. Shame and pain twirled inside me, wrapping around my heart like barbed wire. For too long I'd carried this burden alone, suffocating it under its weight. But now, faced with the compassionate eyes of my friends, I felt a flicker of hope stirring within me. I was tired of hiding, Tired of pretending that everything was okay when it wasn't. With a trembling breath, I steeled myself to face the painful memories. I came home one night and found him kissing my cousin. They didn't even notice I'd walked into the apartment I shared with her. "Please tell me you kicked him in the groin," Hannah asked hopefully. I shook my head. No, I went to my parents' house and told them I'd left my textbook there. I couldn't go back to the apartment or back to campus where I knew I'd run into them. When I got up the next morning, I threw some clothes in a suitcase and caught the first plane out of there. I used the last of my student loans to get my apartment here and some cheap furniture. How long were you with him? 8 years. We started dating when he was a senior at my high school, and then he convinced me to go to college with him. He mapped out our entire future together. I'd get my business degree so I could help manage his private practice after he finished medical school. Turns out he was cheating on me the whole time. There were gasps around the room. No wonder you haven't wanted to date. That's a serious violation of trust. Maria scooted her chair closer to me. You've never confronted him? No, I blocked his number. Shame overwhelmed me. I'm such a coward. Sophie placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. I hadn't realized she'd left her chair. You went cold turkey. That's impressive. We've all seen good women get dragged into a cheater's whirlwind. You got out of it. I'm not so sure of that. He married her. Shotgun wedding? Gabby asked. My mouth opened and closed. I hadn't considered that. It did seem a little rushed from what my mom told me, and she did have a baby. You're better off without him. Sophie lifted her glass of apple juice in a toast. And if you give me their info, I know a guy that can make sure everyone knows what they did. There's really no need for that. Kim held up her phone. Lauren's on it. Sophie frowned. Dang it. Hannah cleared her throat. If Nate doesn't appreciate you, then he doesn't deserve you, Leah. But I don't think you have anything to worry about. He looks at you with the same smile he gets after winning a game. I blushed furiously. He does not. All in favor of going to a game to see if I'm right? Hannah asked. And like the wonderful friends they all were, they all lifted a hand. I glanced around at each of them. A genuine smile tugged at the corners of my lips. You guys seriously rock. You know that? Laughter rippled through the room, dispersing the lingering tension like a gentle breeze, and we got back to discussing our latest read. When Maria and I made it back to her apartment much later in the day, I was ready to fall into bed, or air mattress in this case. While her home was technically a 2-bedroom, the second bedroom had a lot of boxes from Maria's grandmother that she hadn't gone through since her grandmother died. Feeling bad about how uncomfortable the couch was, Maria had bought an air mattress for me and pushed all of her grandmother's things against one wall so I'd have a small private space. I'd just sat down on my makeshift bed when I saw a video call from my mom coming in. I smiled and accepted. I'd been meaning to thank her for the fudge. Hey, sweetie, Mom said. The camera was pointing up at her and my dad. It looked like they were sitting at the kitchen table in their house and about to eat dinner. How is the job search? My cousin Haley had generously filled my parents in on my joblessness by showing them a clip of Priscilla firing me. It had taken me hours to calm my mom down. It wasn't until I'd distracted her by showing her my engagement ring that she'd stopped freaking out. I'm still looking, but a friend knows the owner of a salon and is going to give them my information. That's great! And what about your handsome husband-to-be? Did he get the fudge? He did. He's been bragging about it to his teammates. That put a big smile on her face. I can make some more for them, too. I reassured her that while that was a kind thought, it really wasn't necessary. How have you been doing, Dad? He grunted, and Mom filled me in on his latest doctor appointment. He's been given a clean bill of health. He got to ring the bell today." "That's wonderful. I wish I could have been there with you." When I had to cancel the plane ticket home, it hurt a lot. I'd wanted to surprise both of them for Dad's last round of radiation, and I took solace in knowing I hadn't set them up for disappointment. Haley was there, and she brought us cake. The sound of my cousin's name didn't hurt as much as it had. Talking to my friends earlier had helped. "How is she?" "Oh, she's getting excited for the practice to open. Ted is going to do a grand opening with a ribbon cutting and everything. The pair of them have been working so hard to make their dream come true." She carried on, oblivious to the fact that I'd once told her about that dream, but it hadn't mattered until Haley wanted it. "You don't say," I said. "Oh, don't sound so bitter for her success. You know she doesn't have support from your aunt and uncle." Because they'd cut her off when they realized what a spoiled brat she'd become. "I need to go, Mom. I have to get up early tomorrow." We said our goodbyes, and I promised to be better at calling. Chapter 16. Leah. Nate and I texted a lot when our schedules didn't match up. Late games made it hard to get up early. He still came by the bakery to get his croissant fix, but with the larger crowds hoping to catch sight of a hockey star, our conversations kept getting cut short. I found it very strange whenever someone asked for a photo with me simply because I knew him. Hannah had assured me that it was a good thing that the fans loved me. Lou poked his head in through the door during a surprising lull in the crowd, looking around quickly for Maria. I'd managed to sell him a muffin twice since Maria put him on the ban list for no reason. "She's in the back." With hurried steps, he rushed to the display case. His eyes grew big with excitement as he looked over the wide array of options. "I want one of everything. Wait," he held up a finger. "Scratch that. Make it 2 of everything." I couldn't stop the smile or my laugh as I asked him, "Are you sure? How fast do you think you could box it all?" I shook my head with amusement and began boxing his order. As I rang him up at the register, Maria emerged from the back, her expression a mix of outrage and disbelief. "You!" she exclaimed, slamming a tray onto the counter and snatching away the box I had prepared for Lou. "You don't get these." Lou bristled. "Oh, come on." Maria turned on me. "And you know he's on the banned list." I winced in response. "So," she continued, "the only thing you get are these." Lou's expression softened as he looked to where she pointed at the tray she'd brought up. It was full of lemon bars topped with powdered sugar. He lit up like a kid at Christmas. "You made all these for me?" "I knew you didn't hate me." "I did make them for you," Maria smirked. "Left-wing lemon bars. Because you suck." She stormed back to the kitchen, taking the box of goodies back to the kitchen with her. Lou looked like he was caught between anger and awe as he stared at the lemon bars. Minutes passed, and I wondered if I should text Nate that Maria had broken Lou, but then he shrugged, picked up a lemon bar, and took a bite. He groaned in absolute delight and shoved the square treat in his mouth. With his mouth full, he said, "I'm going to need the entire tray in 2 boxes." I pulled out 2 boxes and, shaking my head in amusement, did what he asked. "The guys are going to be so jealous that I got something named after me." He picked up another lemon bar before I could box it. "Warn me when you're coming in next time. I need popcorn for the show." I rang up his order. He grinned, paid for his order, and left a $100 bill on the counter. "Let her know that's for the first box." "They don't cost that much." "I know." He took his boxes and left. Still smiling, I picked up the bill and walked it back to the kitchen. Maria had a half-eaten eclair in her hand. "He gone?" she asked before taking a bite. "Yes, and he left this to pay for those." I held up the bill and pointed at the box. "He's insufferable," she grumbled. Seriously, what did he do? I asked. I let you go a whole year before you told me about your ex. You can wait until I'm ready to tell you. You did give me a year, but it was a year full of regular pestering, so I hope you'll forgive me for giving you the same. I left her to her musings and laughed when I got a text from Nate with a picture of Lou protecting the lemon bars from Dan. Can you do me a favor and meet Penelope at my place when she gets home from school? Coach wants to talk and it'll make me late. No problem. What's your address? I'll be there as soon as I can. He sent me the address for his place, and I finished out my time at the bakery. Much to Maria's delight and frustration, the lemon bars were a hit with the customers, and she had requests for more tomorrow. I helped her clean the bakery so it was ready for tomorrow, and then I headed out for Nate's place. The sun was shining, and outside felt a little bit warmer as I walked to his condo. I really shouldn't have been surprised when I saw his building. It was within walking distance of the arena. I was just reaching the door to his building when a car stopped by the curb and Penelope got out. She waved to the people inside the car and smiled as she walked toward me. She had her backpack slung over one shoulder. She held up her hand for a high five, and just before my hand connected with hers, she pulled it away. Too slow, she laughed. I laughed with her. Your dad asked me to meet you here. He's meeting with Coach. I know, he texted me, which is why my friend's mom dropped me off. Oh, well, should we go up? Can we go get ice cream first? She made her eyes all big and innocent. I narrowed my eyes at her. Yeah, I don't think so. Your dad said he'd meet us here. She shrugged. Worth a shot. How was school? I asked her as we walked inside. We headed up to the top floor and I realized that Nate lived in the penthouse condo. Penelope didn't waste time walking in and dropping her bag by the couch before plopping onto it and turning on the TV. She pulled up a YouTube channel and started watching videos on how to do hair and makeup. I grimaced as I saw old trends making a comeback. Mullets really should not be a thing, and I can't be convinced otherwise. On the screen, an influencer demonstrated a vibrant makeup look she dubbed the sunset eye. Starting with an orange and gold eyeshadow palette, she expertly applied the hues and blended them so the colors shifted like that of a sunset sky. Then she picked up a liquid eyeliner that was shimmery purple color. With an expert hand, she swept it above and below the eye, connecting at the outer corner with a dramatic wing. Penelope was absolutely enamored with the video and didn't look away as the next video popped up. This time it was a tutorial on overlining lips to make them look fuller. You have to be careful if you're going to do that. Penelope paused the video. What do you mean? I pointed at the screen. It's easy to make it look great for a photo or even a video. You can control the angles to make sure it looks good. But in person, if not done right, it can make you look like a clown. You know how to do all this? She asked. Not just hair? Yeah, I know how to do a lot of it. Penelope let out an excited squeal and grabbed my hand to pull me into her bathroom. A white marble vanity with a single sink took up an entire wall. Penelope opened up one of the cupboards and pulled out what looked like a sparkly teal toolbox. It was so full of makeup, it looked like someone went to the mall and ordered one of everything at the makeup counter. The lip gloss and a few of the items had been used, but the rest looked like they were still brand new. I've been too scared to try, Penelope told me. Katie came to school after Christmas break and so much makeup that people made fun of her. That made me sad to hear. 7th grade is hard enough without that. Makeup should be fun and complement your face. Some cheekbone or eye shapes aren't as flattering. Colors can be even trickier. For the longest time, I wanted to wear red lipstick, but only a few shades look good with my hair color. Do you want something bold or more natural? We got lost in the makeup, and I helped Penelope learn how to do a classic winged eyeliner and neutral-toned blended eyeshadow. It made her look older, more like the teen she was becoming. She smiled and then started to wash it off. I want to try something bolder, She pointed to a blue and purple eyeshadow palette. I'm thinking this with a black eyeliner. That sounds beautiful, I told her. Her stomach growled. Hungry? Yes. Any idea if your dad has something to eat? She shrugged. We eat a lot of spaghetti. You should have a bottle of sauce and noodles in the cupboard. I'll start making it. Why don't you work on applying the look you want while I'm doing that? I left her to practice and headed into the kitchen. While rummaging through the cupboards, I stumbled over the edge of a rug, sending me teetering forward. In my stumble, I flung open the last cupboard and discovered an array of pasta sauces neatly stacked on a shelf. Red ones, white ones, and a variety of flavors greeted me. Found you. I grabbed a jar at random and sat it on the counter. The noodles needed to be cooked before I could heat up the sauce, so leaving the sauce jar on the counter for later, I filled a pot with water and sat it on the stove to heat. The spaghetti noodles were in a tall glass jar on the counter, and Nate must have the best stove in the world because the water quickly came to a boil. I carefully added the noodles to cook and kept an eye on it as it cooked. My phone pinged with a text from Nate. Sorry, this is going so late. I can order you two a pizza. Smiling, I texted him back. Penelope told me where to find the spaghetti stuff. It'll be done soon. You're amazing. I'll be there as soon as I can. Penelope walked out of her room as I was texting Nate not to worry. The noodles are almost done. I looked up from my phone and saw Penelope's attempt at a smoky eye. She'd done a pretty good job for someone that was just starting out. Some of her blending had caused the powder to spread farther, and without the bright vanity lights, it almost looked like she'd gotten a black eye. She just needed to use primer and maybe a different brush. I opened my mouth to praise her and provide some pointers when there was a knock at the door. Her eyes went big, and I could see a little bit of panic. She was not confident with her look, and she'd probably planned on washing it off after showing me. Can you watch the noodles while I get the door? She nodded, her panic disappearing. Smiling to myself, I went to the door and opened it. A short older woman stood in front of me, a serious expression on her face. Can I help you? I asked her. I'm with Child Protective Services. I'm here to see Penelope Mitchell. Chapter 17. Leah. Pure shock left me speechless. I wasn't sure what to do in this situation. Do I wait for Nate to get home or do I let her in? A yelp and a crash sounded from the kitchen. I immediately turned and ran to check on Penelope. She was sitting on the floor. Hot water and noodles dripped off the counter and down the side. The pasta jar I'd set on the counter earlier was broken on the floor. Penelope put a hand down to help herself up, but immediately she pulled it back with a yelp. I carefully stepped around the broken jar to help her to her feet. Luckily, she had her shoes on, so I didn't have to worry about her stepping on glass. Her hand was bleeding. What happened? The CPS worker asked, and it's only now I realized she'd followed me into the house. Tears were welling in Penelope's eyes. I tripped. It'll be okay, I told her. Does anywhere besides your hand hurt? She shook her head. I dropped the pot before the water could get me, but then I knocked the jar off. The CPS worker stepped closer to look at Penelope's hand. That's going to need stitches, and you'll want a doctor to check to make sure there isn't any glass in it. Can you drive us? I asked the woman. The drive to the hospital was filled with Penelope's quiet cries. I kept wiping her tears and telling her that Nate would meet us there. I'd sent him multiple texts at this point, but so far, no luck getting a response. I wasn't even sure if he'd seen them. If only I had Lou's or Dan's number, they'd make sure he knew. Hannah, she'd be able to get a hold of Nate. I shot off a text to her and then thought about Maria. She could get Lou's attention. The more time I spent with the team, the more I was amazed at how much they supported each other. If one of them did well, they all cheered. Sure, they teased each other, but they were always there with an outstretched hand when one of them needed help getting off the ice. We parked at the hospital, and the CPS worker guided Penelope and me into the emergency room. A nurse came to help show Penelope to a hospital bed, But when I went to follow, the CPS worker stopped me. You aren't her legal guardian and will have to wait in the lobby. Penelope's eyes went big. No, I want her to stay with me. The CPS worker looked sympathetic, but she stood firm. I'm sorry. Penelope was whisked away into a private room, leaving me alone to find a seat in the desolate lobby, awaiting Nate's return. Yet, as the hospital doors swung open, it wasn't Nate who strode in, but Erin. She exuded an air of polished perfection in her black leather jacket and sleek jeans. A brief flicker of surprise crossed her face as her eyes met mine before she briskly marched to the reception desk. With practiced precision, Erin feigned a sob and plucked a tissue from the box to dab at her eyes with theatrical flair. I couldn't help but roll my eyes at her dramatic display. Ignoring her, I anxiously awaited Nate's arrival. Moments later, Nate rushed in. His eyes frantically scanned the room. Where is she? CPS wouldn't let me stay with her. She's in a private room, I informed him. The gravity of the situation hit him, and his gaze snapped back to mine. CPS? Didn't you get my texts? I asked him. He shook his head. No. Hannah called Coach and told me to get to the hospital. I recounted the events that led to Penelope's injury. My voice was laden with remorse. I'm so sorry, Nate. I need to see her, he insisted, his worry palpable. I offered my support as we waited for someone to show him and Erin where Penelope was. Absolutely. I'm here if you need me. Erin was looking at the two of us, a calculating gleam in her eyes. A nurse appeared, and Erin returned to her fake sniffles. She and Nate were escorted back to be with Penelope, and all I could do was wait. I sat and picked at my cuticles. The image of Penelope on the floor replayed in my brain, and I realized the corner of the rug was tipped up. I'd never smoothed that out after tripping on it myself. If I hadn't been so careless, she wouldn't have been hurt. This was all my fault, and I felt like the lowest scum on earth. Nate had trusted me to take care of her, and instead, we were in a hospital with CPS investigating. No doubt CPS was doing a check for the custody hearing, and I'd probably screwed that up now for Nate. Time dragged on, the minutes stretching into eternity until Nate finally returned. As I arose from my seat, a wave of dizziness washed over me, and Nate reached out to steady me. It's all my fault, I confessed, my voice heavy with remorse. His brow furrowed in confusion. It was an accident. No, I insisted, placing a trembling hand on his chest. I should have smoothed down that rug. The rug? His voice was laced with confusion. I kicked it up and didn't fix it, and CPS was probably here for the custody hearing, and I've ruined everything. You haven't ruined anything. I have, and you should dump me, I told him. And then all the thoughts came rambling out of my mouth in quick succession. Well, maybe not dump, seeing as our engagement is fake. Does that make it a fake breakup? Whatever it is, you shouldn't keep me around. I'm a danger to you and Penelope, and I ruin everything. Leah, he used both hands to gently cradle my face, and I stopped rambling. He tilted my head back so I was staring up at him. His blue eyes were intense, but not in an angry way. He should have been so angry at me, and the fact he wasn't made me feel all the more guilty. Dad? Penelope asked. We both looked and saw her and Erin standing a few feet away. I didn't know where the CPS worker went, nor did I care. Penelope's face had been washed clean, and there wasn't a speck of the makeup she'd been using earlier. Her hand, on the other hand, had a big patch of gauze and tape covering where she'd been cut. Can I go home with Mom? Penelope asked him. Another layer of self-loathing was added to the pile of feelings inside me. He was going to miss out on his weekend with her because she got hurt in my care. Is that what you want? He asked, and I knew it must hurt him to say it. She nodded, and he let go of me to hug her goodbye. He whispered quiet words into her ear, and I saw a brief smile from Penelope. Hope that I haven't ruined their relationship burned bright. Penelope only gave me a short look. She didn't give me a smile or a wave before she walked away with her mom. Nate drove me home, but we were both quiet during the drive. The silence between us hurt more than I think words would have. Exhaustion hit me like a tidal wave now that the adrenaline rush had dropped. With each passing minute, it got harder to keep my eyes open, and I was grateful that the drive was short to Maria's. Maria opened the door as soon as Nate's truck pulled up outside. No doubt she'd been in the lobby waiting for me. I didn't wait to see if Nate would open my door. I was out of the truck before I could hear him tell me what I already knew. He's better off without me. Maria kept her gaze on me and opened her arms for me as soon as I stepped inside the building. She didn't let go as I heard Nate's truck drive away. The small part of me that had hoped I was misreading everything died at the sound. I tucked my face into Maria's shoulder and sobbed. It was only after the first wave of sobs passed that I realized we were still standing in the doorway. Maria loosened her hold on me. "Do you want to talk about it?" I shook my head no and stepped out of her hold. "I made brownies," she said softly as she guided me to the elevator. "The super thick ones?" I asked. "With extra fudge," she confirmed. "Have I told you how much I love that you stress bake?" "Only 100 times," she laughed. "I've got your favorite movie on the TV. I'll go get those brownies while you get into your PJs. I didn't argue. I simply went to my room and changed into a pair of leggings and an old t-shirt that's soft from being worn so much. I completed it with a pair of yellow fuzzy socks. I wrapped up in a blanket that's on my spot on the couch, and Maria handed me a plate of the most chocolatey brownies ever. She sat down next to me and, using the remote, pressed play. Somewhere between Elizabeth Bennet hearing Mr. Darcy's insult and Jane getting sick, I drifted into a fitful sleep, ensnared by dreams tainted with echoes of heartache. Maria's gentle shake roused me from my restless slumber, and she guided me to her room where she tucked me into her bed. I started to protest, but I was so tired, words were hard. "I'll see you in the morning, Leah. Try to get some sleep," she murmured, her voice a soothing balm to my heartache. "Maria?" I asked. My voice trembled with unshed tears, and the ache in my chest threatened to consume me. "Why does this hurt so much more?" "I don't know, Leah," Maria whispered, her own voice shaking. "But so help me if I wake up and you've caught a plane somewhere." A fleeting smile graced my lips, the first glimmer of hope in the darkness. "Don't worry, I'm too broke for that." Chapter 18. Leah. Days passed and I survived on baked goods from Maria. The morning after the hospital, I didn't get out of bed until my body forced me to. Instead, I'd laid in Maria's room staring at the ring still on my hand. I'd need to give it back to him. Maria had gone to the bakery, and when she returned, she told me that Sophie had helped her man the counter. The day after that, I'd moved to the air mattress so Maria could have her bed back. Then I'd tortured myself by watching highlights from the Glacier Bay hockey team on my laptop. I'd used so many tissues my room looked like a blizzard had hit. Maria sighed and brought me a garbage can. By the third day, though, I was tired of wallowing. I picked myself up, cleaned up my mess of tissues, and started a cleaning frenzy. Maria had come home to a floor so clean she could have served food on it. Not that she would. That would be crazy. On the fourth day, I got a phone call from an unknown number. I'd answered just in case it was CPS wanting something from me. But it wasn't. It was the salon owner in Crestfield. "Leah, Kim told me you're amazing. Are you available for an interview?" she asked. Completely shocked, I agreed. She asked me questions about my license and experience. Near the end of the call, she paused and I waited for her to ask about Erin's video. I don't understand something. If you've had your license for 6 years, why do you only have a few months of recent experience? Not the question I was expecting. I got my license and then worked towards getting my MBA in business. You didn't mention an MBA. That's because I didn't finish the last semester of my schooling. So it wouldn't take very long to get it? No. While looking for more jobs, I'd also looked into seeing if I could finish my degree online. Well, that's all I need to hear. I have an unusual proposal for you. Can't be worse than the last one. Let's hear it. I've been contacted about opening up a second salon by an exclusive resort company. They're in the process of finishing a resort in Glacier Bay, and they want a salon that can handle high-end clients. I need someone to manage my business from Glacier Bay for me. What do you think? My jaw dropped open. Are you serious? You'll need to train in Crestfield until the resort opens, but if you want the job, it's yours. She rattled off a salary amount. The amount would be enough to move out on my own and afford my bills. It was even enough for me to start saving. I'll take it. With hope for my future finances restored, I felt up to working at the bakery on the 5th day. I got up early and put on my favorite bakery t-shirt that said, "I've got 99 problems, but a batch ain't one." I stepped out of Maria's apartment, ready to go to work. The apartment door next to ours opened, and much to my surprise, Lou stuck his head out. I gave him a little wave, hoping he'd go back inside. Instead, he stepped out into the hallway. "Leah, I thought you were going to court with Nate." Fiddling with the hem of my shirt, I shook my head no. I haven't heard anything from him, so I didn't think he'd want me there. Lou grumbled and said something about Nate being an idiot under his breath. Trust me, he wants you there. What would I even do there? I asked him, my voice laden with uncertainty. It was a debate I'd been having for the last 4 days. Lou gave me a sympathetic shake of his head. His eyes held understanding. Sometimes just being there is all you need to do. In a face-off, there's nothing I can do for Nate aside from being where he needs me to be. I can't help him get that puck when it drops, but he knows where I am when he needs to send it to me. Much to my surprise, his analogy made sense to me. I made everything so much worse for him. The weight of my guilt pressed down on me, and I looked down at the laces on my sneakers. "Did you, though?" he asked. His response caught me off guard. His life became a media circus because of me. He laughed. "Have you met Erin? It's been pretty tame compared to when she talked him into that ridiculous TV show. Before you, Nate had 2 things he thought about, Penelope and hockey. Everything he did was for one of those things." But my guilt lingered, and I stubbornly refused to hear what he was telling me. Penelope got hurt because of me, and I don't think he can ever forgive me, I admitted quietly, the words heavy. "From what Nate told me, it was all an accident. He's been meaning to get rid of that rug for a while." A tiny bit of hope cracked through the guilt until I remembered that it was all pretend. That sounds great and all, but we only pretended to be engaged. Nothing about our relationship is real. He only made a show of it to help his chances in court to get custody of Penelope. He looked at me like I was an idiot and grumbled under his breath. His next words were a beacon of wisdom in the darkness of my doubts. To quote the great Wayne Gretzky, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Don't you think it's better to find that out for certain than to assume it and miss out?" I mulled over his words, each syllable a lifeline of hope that I wanted to cling to. "You're pretty smart, Lou," I acknowledged, a glimmer of gratitude in my eyes. His response was a humble shrug, his grin belying his modesty. "That's what my mama says." A playful retort slipped from my lips, a feeble attempt to mask the vulnerability I was feeling. Yeah, well, maybe don't let it go to your head. He shrugged once more, his grin unyielding. Too late for that. Think you could give me a ride to the courthouse? I was hoping you'd ask. He lifted up a pair of keys. Smiling, I told him, give me 20 minutes to get ready. In that time, I swapped my shirt and jeans for my favorite yellow sweater and navy skirt. Grateful I was having a good hair day, I fussed with it just enough to make sure I wouldn't have a case of flat or frizzy hair when I saw Nate. My makeup was already done in the more natural look since I had planned on going to the bakery. I slipped on a pair of matching navy heels and picked up my purse from where I'd left it on the kitchen table. The only jewelry I wore was the ring Nate gave me. Just before I left the apartment, I saw that there was still a brownie left in the pan on the counter. Maria had made me a batch every day, and I was feeling a little sick of them. I grabbed a napkin and put the brownie on it for Lou. Don't tell Maria. He took the treat from me like it was the Holy Grail. I chuckled as I locked up the apartment behind me. Nate was talking to his lawyer as I stepped into the courtroom. His lawyer was in a gray suit with a darker gray tie. Nate was in a dark navy blue suit with a matching tie. I caught a peek of gold cufflinks when Nate picked up a glass of water and took a drink. I didn't want to distract them, so I slipped onto a bench near the back. I looked around for Penelope and saw her sitting on a bench near the front. Nate called her name and she looked up and smiled at him. She got up and walked to him. She was adorable in a long-sleeve lilac dress and black flats. Her hair was left long and loose and hung down her back. Nate gave her a quick hug and a kiss on top of her head. It was when he looked up that he saw me. He froze, and Penelope looked to see what he was staring at. I gave her a little wave, but she looked away. Erin strutted into the room with her phone in her hand. She was wearing a creamy white cable-knit turtleneck dress with a black belt that made her waist look amazing. Her heels clicked as she confidently took her seat next to her lawyer. Nate frowned and said something to his lawyer. Well, that was interesting. Lou slid onto the bench next to me. Parking? I asked. He shook his head, but before he could tell me more, people stood and the judge entered. The hearing started, and there was a lot of back and forth between Erin's and Nate's lawyers. I watched Penelope and saw her shoulders hunch. I didn't know how many times she'd been through this, and I hated that she was being put through it again. If I would had picked a spot closer to her, I would have reached over to hold her hand. Erin glanced back, saw me, and then whispered something to her lawyer. The judge, a man with graying hair and a thick mustache, looked at the things they presented. His facial expressions didn't give any indications of what he was thinking. Erin's lawyer presented the evidence that Nate had Penelope when it wasn't his time with her. Date-stamped photos from the press at Charlie's and at the hockey games were provided. Nate's lawyer provided the texts between Erin and Nate to show that Erin asked Nate to take Penelope for several of the dates. The evidence of Penelope's injury was presented, and I was relieved when I heard Nate's attorney point to the CPS report saying that no one was at fault for the accident. Furthermore, CPS found Nate to be providing a safe and loving home environment. Erin looked back at me and then at the closed courtroom doors. Nate's lawyer brought up that Erin intended to move and take Penelope with her. Erin smiled, and her lawyer asked to present a video clip. On the screen for everyone to see was a video of Nate and me in the hospital lobby. We were talking, and you could clearly hear me saying it was my fault. Erin must have recorded it. The lawyers argued about it, and I heard steps from the hallway and excited voices. The doors to the courtroom opened, and a stampede of reporters rushed inside just as the video continued to play. I couldn't stop the video, and I froze in absolute horror as I watched myself tell Nate that he should dump me. I knew what was coming next, and I looked at Erin. She was absolutely beaming when the words left my mouth in the video. The truth that my engagement to Nate was fake. The courtroom was in complete pandemonium. Nate had rushed to pick up Penelope and protect her from pushy reporters wanting the juiciest scoop. Lou was standing and blocking people from getting at me. The judge was ordering the reporters out, and Erin was posing and playing the perfect victim. After the reporters were gone, the judge gave a heavy sigh and pinched the bridge of his nose. "Your Honor," Nate's lawyer began. The judge held up a hand. "Let's take a brief recess. We'll reconvene in 15 minutes. Erin left the courtroom as soon as she could, no doubt to capitalize on the attention. "Will you be okay if I step out?" Lou asked me. I nodded. "Thank you." He left, and I took a steadying breath before I looked at Nate. He was holding a glass of water out to Penelope. She looked shaken and pale. I didn't know what I was going to say, but I wanted Nate and Penelope to know how sorry I was. As Nate offered comfort to Penelope, a surge of emotion overwhelmed me, and for the second time in court, I was struck speechless. It was in this moment of vulnerability that I came to a startling revelation. I love him. Lou was right. I'm an idiot. I love Nate and Penelope. I walked on shaky legs towards them. Nate saw me coming, and he told Penelope something before he met me halfway down the aisle between the benches. The skin around his eyes was tight from stress, but I didn't see any anger as he looked at me. "You're here," he said. "I didn't think you would come." At first, I didn't think I would either. What changed? Lou gives a good pep talk. Reminded me that it's important to show up even if I can't do anything. He smiled. "I'll have to thank him." "I'm so sorry, Nate." "You've done nothing wrong, Leah." "But that video was preying on a vulnerable moment when you were emotionally distraught. And the press, Hannah is taking care of it." Lou overheard Erin on her phone before she came into the courtroom. "Do you think Penelope will ever forgive me? She wouldn't even talk to me at the hospital before she left." Penelope stepped around her dad. "I thought you were mad at me." "Never," I told her. "But Mom said you were saying bad things about me to Dad, that I was a brat and you couldn't wait until I was gone." Nate stooped down beside her so they were eye to eye. "Sweet pea, I'll never want you gone. You're my girl." "I thought Leah was your girl." He smiled, and the look he gave me was absolutely devastating. My knees went weak. "I love her, and I hope she'll still have me." A rush of emotions flooded through me, and I couldn't hold back. Stepping closer, I reached out to cup his cheek, my heart pounding in my chest. And then, with a surge of courage, I closed the distance between us, pressing my lips to his in a tender, heartfelt kiss. Chapter 19. Nate. "I love you, Nate. Good luck trying to get rid of me," Leah said. Her hand was still on my cheek, and I leaned in to kiss her again, but we were interrupted by a throat clearing. The judge had returned, but I took it as a good sign when Leah and Penelope sat on the bench behind me. Leah was giving Penelope quiet reassurance that she was wanted and loved, something I should have been giving both of them for the last week. But I didn't know what to say over the phone, and Leah hadn't been at the bakery each time I'd gone. I'd hoped seeing her would help me figure out the words, but I'd instead taken her absence as a sign that she wanted me out of her life. The judge cleared his throat. "I'd like to hear from Penelope." Leah squeezed Penelope's hand for a quick burst of encouragement, and I caught sight of the engagement ring on her finger. That was the sign I should have seen earlier. Penelope stood and lifted her chin high as she approached the bench before the judge. The courtroom was so quiet, but I still couldn't tell what they were saying. Penelope had a little bounce in her step as she walked back to sit by Leah. The judge linked his fingers together and looked at Erin and then at me. "A lot of information was presented, and a circus was brought into my court. However, I don't need time to deliberate on a decision. It's clear that both parents could provide homes for Penelope, and that both parents would continue her education. It's also clear that they have different ideas about what the best future is. After talking with Penelope, I've decided that her father will have full custody." I didn't hear the rest of what he said. Joy and relief swept over me, and I was so overwhelmed that my lawyer had to put a hand on my shoulder to snap me back to reality. Erin glared daggers at me, but that was nothing new. Her anger was palpable, but I focused on Penelope's smile instead. I turned to Leah and Penelope. "Who wants an ice cream sundae from Charlie's?" Over ice cream, I learned what Penelope had told the judge. She talked about her time with Erin and how she had to do things she didn't like. When the judge had asked her what kind of things, Penelope had told him she hated acting and modeling, but Erin always made her pose for pictures or practice lines. She couldn't even go to a friend's house unless Erin thought that friend could further Penelope's career. My heart broke more as she told me all the things she didn't like about living with Erin, things she hadn't told me sooner because she didn't want me to be upset. The almost haircut had really scared Penelope because it meant her mom didn't like anything about her. She'd told the judge about living at my house and how she got to eat waffles with chocolate syrup, but that she liked them with strawberries too. How I took her to games and watched TV. How when she went to school after staying at my house, she could talk about the latest episode with the other kids because they'd watched it too. Penelope really liked her school and her friends, but most importantly, she liked feeling normal. Leah summed up the parts I hadn't heard from the judge. Erin's desire to move and change so much in Penelope's life had too many unknowns. The judge also thought that being a child star, as Erin wanted her to be, was a life Penelope and both parents should agree to. Penelope had made it clear she didn't want that life. He gave me full custody because I provided a supportive and stable environment for her emotional, mental, and physical well-being. All the things I'd tried to be for my daughter were the reason the judge let me keep her. Penelope ran to the bathroom to wash the chocolate sauce off her cheeks. I pulled out my wallet to pay the check when I noticed something I'd meant to give Leah for a while. The day Penelope ended up in the hospital, I'd gone to the bank to have them print a check. I pulled out the check and handed it to her. "This is yours." She stared at it and tried to hand it back to me. "What does it mean?" "When I proposed to you, I made a promise to take care of you." "You didn't even put an amount on it." I reached for her hand and leaned in closer to her. "Put whatever number that you want on it. You mean everything to me, Leah. You've given me everything." "Nate." The way she said my name was as if she was on the verge of crying. "I thought you were leaving it blank because you thought what we have is worth nothing." I got out of my chair and pulled her up so I could wrap my arms around her. "Never," I told her. "Never at any moment have I felt that way." I kissed her and put everything into the kiss to reassure her of my words. "Dad," Penelope whined. "Gross." Leah's cheeks were bright red when I stopped kissing her, but it was the happiness in her eyes that I couldn't stop staring at. It was something I hoped to see every day. Tonight's game was the highly anticipated Sweethearts game, and the entire team had made a special swap, trading in their usual blue jerseys for light pink ones in honor of Valentine's Day. The game itself isn't on Valentine's Day, which happened earlier this week. Nate invited me over to eat dinner at his condo since he didn't want to leave Penelope home alone. Everything was too fresh with the custody hearing, and even though Erin had moved away, Nate didn't want to leave Penelope any longer than he had to. He'd tried to give me the check again since I'd returned it at the restaurant, but instead, I tucked it into his hand and kissed him. Our relationship might have started out of desperation, but there was no way I was going to risk him or Penelope ever thinking I stayed because of money. I'd even told my parents the entire crazy story when Nate suggested we plan a visit to go see them during the summer break from school and hockey. My parents laughed, and Dad told me he knew it was real all along because I'd never had a good poker face. Mom had simply smiled and told me she knew it was real because I'd never looked at Ted that way. Turned out, my parents had known what Haley and Ted did to me, but Haley had convinced them I was fine with it and just wanted it all to stay in the past. When my parents learned the truth of how I'd been feeling, and that the hurt was my reason for moving so far away, they cut Haley out of their lives and told her she had to make it right with me before they'd consider seeing her again. I had yet to hear from her. The arena buzzed with excitement, filled with the energy of fans eagerly anticipating the game. The guys on the team had been thrilled when they'd learned that Nate wouldn't be transferring at the end of the season. When Hannah caught wind of the tickets Nate had scored for me and Penelope, she didn't hesitate to extend the invitation to the rest of our book club. Now all of us were seated together right behind the team's bench, separated only by a wall of plexiglass. It was an exhilarating view, being so close to the action. Nate took a brief break on the bench and shot me a playful wink over his shoulder. My heart fluttered with a mixture of excitement and affection, and I couldn't help but grin foolishly as I settled back into my seat next to Penelope. Both of us were proudly sporting matching jerseys adorned with her dad's name and number. "You guys are gross," Penelope teased, taking a sip of her soda, "but thanks for making my dad happy." "He makes me pretty happy, too," I replied, feeling a surge of warmth at the simple truth of my words. Nate and I had mutually decided to take things slow, and I had returned the ring he'd given me. Yet, as he gently slipped it onto my right hand instead, as a promise for the future, I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. Before we knew it, the game drew to an end. The team won, but it had been close and had come down to a slap shot by Matt that got through the other team's goalie. He'd likely be named the MVP of the game. Hannah took a photo of us all in our seats, claiming she needed it for the team's social media. "Oh, let's get a photo out on the ice." Maria was nodding and walking towards the door in the plexiglass before the rest of us could stand up. Penelope was grinning ear to ear. "What do you think?" I asked her. "Let's do it." We walked carefully out onto the ice. Maria and Hannah had already made it to the center of the ice underneath the jumbotron. The vastness of the arena surrounded us, and I was amazed by how much bigger it felt. "Everyone look over here," Hannah called out, signaling for us to gather for the perfect snapshot. We took a few, and then Hannah showed us the photos. We were all gathered around it, which made it harder to see. I was the last to look at all our happy faces, but the side of it was perfect. The others started to walk away now that the photos had been taken. I smiled at Hannah and handed her back her phone. "Great pic." She looked at the screen. "I do pretty well sometimes." I turned around to ask Penelope if we should try talking Maria into making bear claws tomorrow, but before I could, I saw him. Nate was in his pink jersey down on one knee. "Leah," he smiled. "I know I said I wanted to slow down, but I take it back." I chuckled and felt my eyes start to tear up as he took my hands in his. "I think I fell for you the first time you called me Super Dad, but I didn't know how much I needed you until I saw you in that courtroom." Penelope walked up to stand beside him. "I'd like it if you were my stepmom." "Will you marry me for real?" Nate asked. "Yes." He slipped the ring off my right hand and returned it to its rightful spot on the left. There were joyous cries from my friends, and Penelope hugged me before Nate could get off his knees. I noticed 2 more people had joined us on the ice, and their familiar faces had happy tears falling down my face. My parents were here, and I hugged them tight before letting go. Nate finally stood, his gaze locked onto mine, and the world narrowed down to just the 2 of us. With a tenderness that spoke volumes, he swept me up into his arms, drawing me close as if I were the most precious thing in his universe. His kiss was a testament to the depth of his emotions, each brush of his lips against mine, making me feel cherished, protected, and loved. Cocooned in his arms, I was warm and secure. In this moment, All the worries and doubts I'd ever had about us melted away, leaving only the raw, unbridled love I felt for him. His kiss was a symphony of emotions, a silent proclamation of everything he was, everything he felt. In that electrifying moment, I knew that I'd irrevocably, unequivocally love him forever. This has been Power Plays and Proposals by Jessica Parker, narrated by Lisa Lynn Sandlin. Copyright 2024 by Jessica Parker.